Good evening. We are live.
Hello.
Scott and I are here waiting around Paolo as he gets his dinner and gets home from work.
Cells, as Terrence says.
Good evening, comic book fiend yourself. Fiending for some comics. It was a weird comic book week for me this week.
How so?
Because it was an expensive week at $37. But I only got 3 comic books to read, which I'll show you later on. But it was just that I bought some comics.
Oh, okay.
I bought some comic book bags, which are $9.
Yeah.
And 2 Bad Idea comics came out. One was $10 and one was $6. Yeah. So it's like there's $25 right there, and bags and 2 comics.
Right.
I was like, whoa, what happened to my money?
Maybe get some more Maller.
And speaking of money, I was just looking at, I showed you that Great Gatsby graphic novel that I took out of the library last week. Yeah. Well, somehow I got it in my head now to look for Great Gatsby illustrated versions. Like maybe I'll
get classics illustrated version.
No, just the book, but illustrated.
Right.
I was just looking on Amazon for them, and they had about, I think, 4 or 5 different illustrated versions. Well, maybe someday I'll get these. They're not expensive. Right. Except then I saw this one. I forget the guys who did it. It's not out yet. It's coming out in March or something. It's $100.
Yeah.
I think there's 50 illustrations. These 2 guys are both, I think they're Italian, and they're illustrators and book designers. And they've done this with a few books where they put out these big, fancy, slip-cased, highly illustrated, highly designed versions.
Shelves full of those kind of things, and I can't afford them anymore.
I know. I was like, oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, those Vanity Press illustrated versions, limited editions, they're usually pretty nice production values on them.
Yeah. Gotham Central Omnibus comes out next year. It's what I found out the afternoon when I stopped by one of my shops. April, I think. Gotham Central. I read some Gotham Central. It was okay. But don't think I'd get an omnibus of it.
Is it focusing on the Gotham PD?
Yeah, it focuses on the Gotham PD, and it's kind of... I would rather see one that wasn't in Gotham. See kind of just like a real life, like a real police, because in the background of your mind is always Batman exists in this world.
Right.
So I think that distracted me, but it was well done. Who did Gotham Central?
I have no idea.
Karen, I think it was like Brubaker. I never bought an omnibus. This one I might pick up if I have the extra. But I've bought plenty. The one good thing about omnibuses, I've probably sold half the omnibuses that I bought. Because especially the Marvel omnibuses, if you buy them and then they go out of print 2 or 3 years later, you can sell them easily. Like it was funny because I think like, see, what ones have I sold? I used to have the 2 Gene Colan Dracula omnibuses. And it was one of those. When I bought, they're like, the list price on them is like $125.
Right.
But I think I probably got them for around $60. When they go on sale. It's Rucka and Brubaker.
Yeah. I wish I had got the Colossal Conan volumes that Dark Horse did, because trying to buy even used copies of those now is expensive.
Yeah.
You're talking like $500-$600 and more.
Michael Larkin's right. Yeah, the Gotham Centrals are well done. They just didn't grab me. I remember. I think I read a couple of trades of them. I mean, they were good enough for me to keep reading them.
Right.
And I think I didn't buy them. I think somebody gave me the trades or something. So, and I actually did read them. If I really didn't like them, I wouldn't have read them. I would have stopped. But like I said, it was like 3 years later, and those Dracula omnibuses were out of print, so I ended up selling them for like $150 a piece.
Right.
Just because, that's what you get for them then. Just bought Nocturnal's Omnibus, Volume 1, Volume 2's in freebie. I've never read Nocturnal. I think I read some Nocturnals in Dark Horse Presents, and that's it. But I actually prefer the slimmer, because I like the omnibus big size, but I don't like the thickness of them. Makes them so hard to read. Like that Jack Kirby one I got over there, the giant size Kirby, which was I got a really good deal on. It's just so huge. I think it's 18 pounds I weighed it at.
Yeah.
And that's just crazy to try and read.
That's why I have muscles.
It's a workout. Yeah, Dan Brereton's painting style is very nice. It pops into my head immediately.
His painting style reminds me of somebody else, and I can't think of who it is.
Mm-hmm.
I like the other guy better, and I can't think of who it is.
The Madman Omnibus is another one I remember selling because it was so expensive, and I needed the money. It's like, and that one I remember was very good. That was one that the binding, the best.
Now you couldn't buy it back for what you sold it for either.
No. But I still have all my issues of Madman, but it was just one of those things where
like some of the early Tundra issues of Madman.
When I was out of work and needed money, I looked around for the stuff I could sell, and I sold it.
I get it.
Yeah, I was glad to have it, especially since those Tomb of Dracula omnibuses sat around for 3 or 4 years with me because I was always like, oh, I want to go back and read them and read all the Tomb of Dracula, and I just finally I was
I have plans to read all kinds of stuff. Yeah. It's going to happen this year, probably not.
Mm-hmm. Reminiscent of a painter from the 30s. Got a book about a painter from the 30s I'm going to talk about tonight when Paolo shows up.
A painter from the 30s.
I'm
going to guess. Oh,
Petty. After those cards I showed a couple weeks ago.
I would have guessed Leyendecker, but
what was that?
I would have guessed J.C. Leyendecker.
He was a huge Leyendecker fan, and in his before he became a girl artist, as he says, which he never planned on,
right?
He preferred painting dudes, and he painted them very reminiscent of J.C. Leyendecker. The couple of early things in here that I was like, wow, he really likes Leyendecker. You can tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. J.C. Leyendecker. But it's interesting reading about, because I actually read the book too. It had, some stuff, most of these books really aren't long in terms of bio stuff, but it's there. It's,
some of them are. It just depends.
Some of them are, but it'll take you 2 or 3 hours to read the text stuff, not 13 or to 30 hours like a biography that was all text would.
Right.
But it's interesting to read about, these illustrators in the beginning of the 20s. It was a whole different world.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A whole different world.
Yeah, Franklin Booth was a huge influence on Bernie Wrightson when he did his Frankenstein stuff.
I've been binging Pete Beard's channel all week.
That's a really good channel.
All the illustration artists from 1850s through the 70s. Amazing in-depth research. Wow.
Yeah, he usually does like 2 to 3 artists in like each video. And does a pretty good job. It's really worth watching. I like that channel a whole lot.
And speaking of out of print, the one book I've been trying to get I was going to buy it in September, but then my phone, I had to get a new phone in September. So there went any money I might have for The Complete Hate. And like all the before September, all this years, you could get. I think the list price on it is $130. You could get it for $85.
Yeah.
So I was like, planning. I was planning all summer on getting it, but then I had to get my new computer, so I couldn't get it. Then I was going to get it after that. I had money saved up, then I had to get and now
And then you discover it's how much now?
It's not out of print, but it's out of stock.
Right.
And you'd be lucky to get it for $130. I see it going mostly for $160.
Right.
And I'm like, forget it.
Yeah, I was very, very lucky to get a copy of the Wally Wood Artist Edition when I did.
Yeah.
Because I had to hunt, and I was like, I had to hunt a lot of different places I usually don't go to find.
I got that one when it came out, so I paid whatever $125 for it or something.
Yeah, that's about what I paid, like cover price for it.
Yeah. But I didn't have to hunt for it. My comic shop ordered it for me.
I had to do some because I realized it was about to go out of print. There weren't many copies to be had.
I got mine.
Better get this now.
Those were the early days of artist editions. That's when I bought the most of them because they were rare then. It was kind of like, ooh, an artist. Now there's so many of them. It's like,
Yeah, but there aren't that many coming out.
Them. Yeah, but over the years they've built. Is it 2 or 3 a year? Over 10 years is now a lot of artist editions.
Yeah, and I have 7 or 8 of them, something like that.
Yeah, I got about that too, I'd say.
I have the Mark Schultz one. Wally Wood. Sergio's Gru. The Al Williamson Empire Strikes Back one. The Starstruck one by Mike Kaluta. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I have a Usagi Yojimbo Gallery edition, which is basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Size is slightly different. I also have the Illustrated Alien by Walt Simonson.
Right, I've got that too.
A similar format.
I like there was even one I got. I think it's a gallery edition. It's Dark Horse. Was the ElfQuest one because it went on sale for like $50.
Yeah.
Just 2 for me right now. I've been eyeballing the Red Sonja by Frank Thorne. Yeah, there's 2 Red Sonja ones by Frank Thorne. They were a couple of the early ones.
Yeah, they're always wanted to get the Bernie Wright, or not the Bernie. Good Lord, the Barry Windsor Smith one for Red Nails, but it's done by another publisher, and it's
my friend got that one.
Not quite as good.
My friend got that one, and he didn't like it.
Yeah, it's on a slicker paper too.
It's on a slicker paper, and there's only 1 image per page.
Right. Yeah.
Mike Mignola had an artist edition come out in February for $40. Oh, an artisan one.
That's the shrunken down version.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They're more around 11 by 14.
Speaking
9 by 12.
of Mike Mignola, did you see the solicitation that came out for a book he's going to be doing called Radio Spaceman?
No.
I am waiting for that like nothing else I've been excited for a long time.
Huh.
It's just based on a character. You remember when he was doing those sketches that were collected in a sketchbook for charity during the lockdown?
Mm-hmm.
He's doing different sketches, and he just created this character who's kind of like think of a science fiction equivalent of the Amazing Screw-On Ed.
Huh.
Okay, he's just like a floating skull with a Wally Wood type space helmet. Huh. I was like, that character looks awesome. I hope it's a comic, and finally it's going to be. And like, yes. So.
Oh, that sounds. Frank Thorne had a collected ribbit. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Signed for the first. I'm not much of a signature guy, but I'd like to see that book.
Hermes Press can be a little dodgy in the production value sometimes on some of the more expensive books they do.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think I've got a couple of Hermes Press things. I can't even remember what they are.
I know they reprinted.
But I got I got the Usagi Yojimbo gallery edition because my LCS owner a couple of years ago gave it to me for cost because he accidentally ordered it.
Yeah, I have one of the two, but I don't have. And of course, that second one is, geez, the prices on those are just nuts when they go out of print. Yeah.
Usagi.
So if you want anything that's a limited hardcover, just go ahead and grab it while you can.
Oh yeah,
read it later.
Yep. I found there's a certain point I reach where if I'm thinking about buying like an expensive book or something, I put so much thought into it that I reach the point where I'm like, I'm just going to buy it to stop me from pondering. I'm wasting too much energy wondering if I should get this.
You're not the only person that does that. Like this little mini version of OCD kicks in.
Let's reach that point of like, okay, I got to get it now or I'm going to waste even more time wondering if I should get it.
Yeah, and then years later you're looking at it and it's like, boy, it's like twice the price it used to be.
Glad I got it then. And some things drop in price like crazy.
I know, it's weird. It's sometimes hard to judge.
We're talking about buy first, ponder later. No, I always ponder, and then after I reach a point of too much pondering, that's when I compelled. Well, actually, most stuff I buy before I reach that point, but expensive stuff I'm talking. Right. You know, stuff I have to save up. Like the I got the hardcover box set of Neat Stuff by Peter Bagg, which came out 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And that came out at like, I don't know, $80 or $100. Mm-hmm. Then I got it when it was down to like $40. Then I saw them like they're selling them on clearance on Amazon for like $12. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I got a what was it? The New Yorker cartoon compilation, which was originally like close to $100, and I always had it on sale for like $12.
Yeah, it's weird what goes.
How about that? Just for the Charles Adams stuff.
Yeah, it's weird what goes into the cutout bin and what doesn't. Sometimes I'm like,
yeah, that's
just strange.
That's true.
And things that have it's almost like seems like I've been waiting 3 months or more. Oh, is that for the Frank Thorne ribbit? Wow, maybe I should grab a set. Yeah, go look at what the price of Neat Stuff is now. I don't know what it is, but it's probably
not very neat.
Yeah. But it's kind of like there's a weird point of popularity where if something's like the Tomb of Dracula omnibus, there were just enough people. That was sort of semi-popular. And if you set your print run to semi-popular and all the stuff gets bought up right away, then there's still a little bit of popularity going on at the end.
Yeah.
The price goes up on it because those, 10 to 15% of people who didn't get it want to buy it.
Right.
But at the same time, there's that semi-popularity. And if you set your print run a little too high, everybody who wants one gets one. And then there's that, 10 to 15% print run left over or whatever it is that just plummets in price.
Yeah.
So it's this weird, set your print run a little too high, set your print run it's just strange.
I think it's also marketing too. I don't think that some of the companies don't really do a good job.
Most comic book companies don't market.
Right, because you hear all these people like, I didn't even know that existed. It's like,
yeah.
You probably weren't keeping an eye out for it, even if it did.
Right. If you want that sort of stuff, you really have to keep an eye out. But most people don't.
Very true.
They hear about it that's that 10 to 15% who hear about it a year later and it's out of print and they're willing to pay money for it. Yeah, I was just reading something in matter of fact, let me get the comic shop news. It's back here. I think it was Boom Studios underestimated the demand for slipcase editions of which one? Once and Future, and what was the other one? It may have been the what is it? That one with something's killing the children. Okay. I don't. But what's weird is people are like, oh, they really. It was one of these things that they set the print run before the orders came in. So
it's kind of a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
Yeah. That is, but I think that happens with these hardcovers because I think they're so out in front of them that a lot of people order on final order cutoff or don't get their orders in until final order cut. Because if you're a comic shop, that's the last time you can order it.
Right.
So that's the last time. So I think people put their orders in at the last minute. So all of a sudden, instead of having 3 copies, you need 10.
Right.
Meanwhile, the print run has already been set 3 months ago. So now they're having to go back and make a second volume of the slip.
And then you're mad when Diamond shorts you later on and you can't get it.
Book deposit, sifted, and the Devil Site Amazon Canadian. Yeah.
Site. Next is talking to the bots.
Hey, Chloe, you here for the market report? She sure is. They offered one with the slipcover and the other without. The slipcover was $20 more. Yeah. Those slipcovers can be expensive. I think that was the Boom Studios one.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of slipcovers. I mean, they're okay.
I'm neutral. I don't dislike them, and I don't love them.
Yeah, neither do I. I'm just kind of like...
I've got really nice slip-covered sets of different stuff.
Yeah, they look nice. I mean, they can certainly make slip covers look nice, but I don't really care that much about them. To me, they're sort of like what baffles me. I watch some DVD collecting YouTube videos sometimes, and these guys love their steel books. Paolo the Grinch. Hey,
that's me.
How you doing, Paolo?
I am the Grinch.
Steel books are like variant covers for DVD.
Yeah, they're it's just so weird. They love those steel books, but it's even weird. I'd say it's even stranger with DVD or Blu-rays or whatever they are, because it doesn't affect the movie at all. It's like a movie is a whole separate thing than the case it's kept in. But people love fancy cases.
I understand the collector. It's like being a comic or a book collector. You like when things are designed nicely.
Right. There is that.
Like I have a really nice Star Trek Blu-ray set.
Mm-hmm.
Just the graphics and everything used are much better than some of the other ones that came out that just have very kitschy,
I agree
graphics.
That when there's something pretty and something not so pretty, people want the pretty one.
Mm-hmm.
Most people want the cheap one, but
100% understandable. But when the pretty one is $50 and the less pretty one is $20, that's a lot of money to pay.
Right.
For something that, and the whole point of them is to watch the movie. So it's kind of like I just find that a little odd. I just found the Steelbook mania a little odd.
It looks good on your furniture.
Yeah, it does. It looks
good. I can kind of understand it if it's a set versus an individual movie.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to spend more time looking at the movies on your shelf than you are watching any individual actual movie.
Awesome.
Yeah, like I have this set of Marx Brothers movies. They came in one of those boxes that look like your grandma's sewing kit. It wasn't very expensive. It was actually pretty cheap. But yeah, it looks nice.
I'm with 62 Lefty Blues here. I'll wait till the movies get to $4. Not that I bought a movie in a while.
It really depends. I've done both. I've bought stuff dirt cheap, and I've
Yeah.
bought like really expensive sets. It's
Whatever you feel like at the
I
time.
guess.
Well, got comic shop news, and the winter preview came this week. By the way, comic shop newses are really good for wrapping presents. They have some nice graphics on them, and they're about the consistency of wrapping paper too.
It's like, when I was a kid, they used to wrap presents in the Sunday comics, from the
Yeah. Gore Vidal is here. When Who Was It Killing Slipcase was released, I saw 2 YouTubers discussed getting them, but they weren't going to read them. Yeah, exactly.
Also, they're just speculating.
Scott, did you get the last Steve Rude?
I didn't get in on the last one, but the last one I did get on was the Coming of Gormando paperback. I wanted to get the artist edition, but I just didn't have the money at the time.
Yeah, 60. I guess he's getting his Something's Killing the Children slipcover this week.
And Steve Rude does a lot of Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Does he fulfill them?
Yes.
That's
key. Good.
Yeah, he's actually his wife is like his business manager, and she is on stuff. She'll give you like shipping updates, and they let you know if the books are sitting on a ship on the coast at Long Beach waiting to get processed. They let you know about that kind of thing. So
speaking of business, this was the book I read this week, which was George Petty. If you remember the cards I showed a couple weeks ago, and the Petty Girls,
right?
Really interesting stuff. I didn't realize that he was like one of the top illustrators in the 30s, 40s, and into the 50s.
Yeah.
And something I learned reading this book, the word pinup wasn't invented until 1942 in Great Britain. So it's a wartime term. So he became like one of the first kind of pinup artists. The Petty Girl, who wasn't a plan. Terry Moore's wife is the same way with the business.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's nice to have a partner who can be your partner.
Yeah.
Sure. And it was really interesting reading this book and just to get a glimpse back into the world of illustration in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I also never read before. He was the guy who made the airbrush into an artistic tool.
Okay.
Before him, the airbrush was almost exclusively used for touching up photo negatives.
Gotcha.
And his sort of pinup art began with the beginning of Esquire magazine in like the early 30s.
Yeah. That's exactly the sort of thing that Pete Beard channel that Lefty Blues talked about earlier covers in his videos.
And what's interesting too in reading at this point in time, see you later, Terrence. At this point in time, like illustrators were, if you were a top illustrator in the U.S., you were making, rock star and movie star money.
They really were the rock stars of the art world at the time.
Yeah, they were some of the main entertainers, because when you think about it, there's radio, there's no TV, there's the movies, so it's like all the imagery you get is from magazines and ads, and ad imagery was big.
Yeah,
and it was also interesting reading because like in the 30s, the reason this pinup stuff got popular is when you think of it, there were no sexy pictures that didn't exist. if you wanted a picture of a sexy girl, you got Esquire magazine. That was it. I mean, otherwise they didn't really, and they even mentioned later on in this book that it wasn't until, I think there was a landmark case in 1947 in New York State where a judge, must have been a federal judge, declared because an artist and his model, a photographer and his models were sued for,
Obscenity.
morals. And the judge said no, they're allowed to do that, freedom of expression. They're allowed to take sexy photos. You couldn't even take sexy photographs. And it was actually, what was the Haze? What was the name of that? For the movies that kept track, before there were movie ratings, there was the Haze, I don't know, Foundation, whatever they were called.
The Haze Commission, I think.
The Haze Commission, maybe that was it. So it was like, sometimes they would have to tone down the advertising for the movie. It was like you were allowed to be sexier in ads than you were in the movies even. So it was really interesting how his sexy pinup girls got to be really hot. But that was like the only outlet Americans had for sexy pictures.
There was a huge controversy in one of the early Tarzan movies that Johnny Weissmuller was in.
Oh yeah, that's what started the Haze.
I can't remember the actress's name, but that footage, they allowed it in Europe.
Right.
Here in the States, it got cut out.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's Tarzan is some of the stuff that started the Haze Commission.
Maureen O'Sullivan. Yeah, the first movie she had visible side boob.
Yeah.
Her costume for the remaining movies is a lot tamer.
Right. And what was the one with Claudette Colbert in the milk bath? It was a Bible story. I remember seeing the restored version of it on AMC in like the early 90s. I cannot remember. It may have been a Cecil B. DeMille movie from the late 20s.
I just got a mental image of
she may have played Cleopatra in it. And they had a shot of her in the milk bath.
Right.
And her boobs were almost floating to the top the whole time. It was just like you thought you saw something, you weren't sure. So that was another one that got the Haze Act.
So the milk was pasteurized?
Yes. Yes, that was the Tarzan. He got nude in the lake and was wearing something that concealed nothing. Yes.
Yeah, actually the footage in Europe, she was complete full frontal nudity.
But what was also interesting about Petty was that this was the age too where, and I remember I've read this about more than one old time illustrator, where he didn't consider himself an artist. He was like, if I didn't get paid, I'd never pick up a pencil.
Right.
The reason they went into illustration was because it was a really, really good job.
Yeah, it paid well. Yeah.
And as opposed to now, where if you go into illustration, it's because you like to make illustration, It's not a really... So it was like guys like Petty who worked all around in sort of the printing business, doing all sorts of that. And he learned the airbrush from doing photo retouching in the printing business. Okay. But he always had his eye on being an illustrator because that was the top paying job in that business.
Yeah.
So it was really an interesting read because I just, that era of illustration is just when illustrators were rock stars. It's just kind of real interesting.
And a large portion of them lived within 5 or 6 miles of each other in Connecticut.
Yeah, Westport, Connecticut. That's where they all lived. All the comic book artists, all the illustrators. Westport, Connecticut, an easy train ride into New York City.
Yeah.
And they all built like haciendas for themselves eventually. That's amazing. It's like even I don't know if I was a little confused if someone in George Petty's family had money or not, because he didn't become successful with the Petty girls until he was 40.
Okay.
Meanwhile, he had made a good living doing some illustration, but he was near Chicago. And even before he was successful, he bought 100-acre parcel of land with a lake, and he had to buy the 100 acres so he could get the whole lake. and built his sort of their summer home there. And I'm like, you got even even in 1928, you had to have some sort of family money if you weren't a successful illustrator to buy 100 acres of land. I mean, I can't imagine you could do that. I mean, I couldn't buy 100 acres of land. Could you?
No, but ratio-wise, even back then, land was cheaper than it is now.
But still, 100 acres with a
Even-
lake and then build a house on it for your summer home.
That's what Burroughs did with Tarzana. He founded a whole town.
Yeah, but he made money founding the town. And like I know the guys like the Terry the Pirates guy.
Steve,
Not Steve Canyon.
not Steve.
Milton Caniff.
Thank you. Good Lord.
Was it Milton Caniff?
Yeah, it's Milton Caniff.
No, I'm not thinking of Milton Caniff. Actually lived near me, so I'm confusing.
Oh, okay.
I'm confusing him with the Gasoline Alley guy now.
Cats.
Frank O'Neill. Well, hold on, the book's right here. I know.
It's like one of those things on the back of your brain which can't quite bring it into focus. Cats. Was it
So I
Frank?
can't remember his name.
Frank O'Neill. No.
Every name, but where is it? Franco King. That's it.
Okay.
Franco King
O'Neill did Oz.
made so much money with Gasoline Alley that he built a big compound down in Florida eventually. He was also from Chicago.
Gotcha.
And like that's common for like a lot of illustrators and cartoon and comic strip artists that they were making so much money at that time.
Yeah, Hal Foster was making quite a bit.
Oh yeah. They were the 1% of their day. They could be making that stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was that. I'm sure Pal the Grinch has heart 3 times as big.
Oh, the joke I could make.
But what was also interesting that there's a little thing in the back, a little couple of pages by a guy who was an airbrush illustrator in the 70s. And he finally got to meet his idol, Petty, like in 1971 when he was talking to him. And he said, the guy says, oh, you'll be remembered as a great artist. And Petty said, I think I should be remembered as a great businessman. Because that's also how he saw himself. Because once again, I think it has something to do with the fact that he was 40 by the time he hit it big with the Petty girls. But he always made sure that his clients, like Esquire, knew that they were only buying the first reproduction rights.
Right. Plus, also, a lot of those guys came out of the Depression, and you had to.
Well, this is before. This is in the Depression.
Right. I'm just saying, to be successful at that period of time.
Yeah.
It's a big thing.
Well, that's why they wanted to be illustrators, because that was a place you could be successful. Because he always made sure that he sold that the paintings were his.
Mm-hmm.
That they only had the first or second reprint, first reproduction rights, maybe first reprint rights, whatever they wanted to specifically buy. And then he'd sell them. He'd sell the rights to other people if he could.
Just imagine the money Jack Kirby could have made if he'd had an arrangement like that.
Yeah. But he didn't have the chance. Look at how much money Bob Kane made. He didn't have
I think it was easier in that regard to negotiate with legitimate businesses,
right,
than with the pulp people.
Right. It was easier to negotiate with little legitimate businesses, and you were valued.
Right.
Because I think they said Esquire circulation.
I'm sure it was in the millions.
I think it was. First of all, when Esquire came out, it was like the first of the men's magazines. And it circulated, and also it was, at the time when magazines were a dime, Esquire was 50 cents.
Right.
And it was originally going to be distributed to men's clothing stores. And then, and I think the initial print run of the first issue was like 100,000 for men's clothing stores. And they decided to add on an extra 10 or 15,000 for the newsstand, because the newsstand said, we don't want this. We can't sell a 50-cent magazine.
Right.
And then it sold out in minutes. And all that they had to scramble and take a lot of those men's stores copies and send them to the newsstands.
Right.
And then the circulation just kept going up, up, up from there till it hit like 500,000 or like 1 million even. And Petty was one of the reasons, because they love, and they knew it. They knew that the Petty Girl was a hit. So much so that
I'm buying Esquire for the articles.
I mean, that's why people bought Saturday Evening Post, was for the Norman Rockwell work.
The other Esquire, a little bit later, I think in the late 30s, when Petty left or was leaving Esquire, because he was there was two guys who ran Esquire. One guy was sort of happy-go-lucky, and the other guy was kind of maniac who wanted to be in charge and wanted to let you know he was in charge.
It was like good
one of those in
publishing. Yeah.
Yeah, Petty didn't always get along with that guy. He made his deals with the other guy. But of course, there was fallout over stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's where the other guy managed to find luck into Vargas. You ever heard of that? That another famous.
Yeah, he's actually better known than Petty is for that.
He is better known than Petty is. But he became the next day, when they were done with Petty, they got Vargas, who they called Varga. So they could and they found out they copyrighted his signature and his paint. So he didn't have any of the. He ended up suing Esquire for all sorts of damages and even psychological damages, because the boss, who was such a maniac, didn't treat him that well. But like when they found Vargas, he was a talented guy, and he was in debt up to his earlobes and couldn't get work for various reasons. So he fit right into that. He felt right into that. Let's take advantage of this guy mold.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of artists back then did get taken advantage of.
Oh yeah, it's not hard.
It hasn't changed ever since.
No, it's not hard. Not hard at all.
Priority number one is always to get published. How you get published?
Right. How you get published. Sometimes when you're young and want to get published, want to get started, that's when you sign all your bad deals.
Yeah.
That's how it works. Have you guys ever read these fake Warren magazines, Shudder?
I haven't read Shudder, but I read some issues of.
Sleepy Reader gets them sometimes.
Yeah.
They had one called The Creeps.
Yeah, I got like the first 2 or 3 issues of The Creeps. I thought the idea was better than the actual execution was.
I thought the same thing when I just looked through them. But they had
they really were using the Warren magazines as a model.
Right. They got sued by whoever owns Warren magazines, and they ended up changing it to Shudder is the name of it now.
It's the same thing, just as
yeah. The guy who owns it was like, oh, it was, you know what? He's like, I'm not fighting a whole lawsuit I don't have the money for. I'll just change the name. So that's what he ended up doing. But there's a little article on them here.
Yeah, now that they've got that, and they've got whatever their version of Vampirella is as a magazine now.
Oh, that's right. Vampire somebody.
He's got like 2 magazines going on. Both,
Vampiris Camilla.
Both of them,
That does not roll off the tongue.
No, it does not. It is tough to say. Vampiris Camilla.
See, every time I think Camilla, I think Camilla the chicken from the Muppet Show.
What is she? Issue 7 of Vampiris Camilla is due out this month, so someone must be buying it.
I mean, it's not hard. It just changed from Vampirella to Vampiressa. Because, again, I can tell that she's a Countessa. The Countessas Draculina.
Well, they couldn't just change from creepy to the creep, so...
They could make it a men's magazine and call it Pee-Pee.
Here's Batman.
Never mind. That's not good.
Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries. Every time I see a Scooby-Doo comic, I flash back to that Harley Quinn Scooby-Doo that everyone chased for a week or two. That was just so funny. Oh, do you remember that?
Oh, back when they were doing the DC Warner Brothers.
No, it was when for some reason it got hot on YouTube. It's Scooby-Doo Team Up. And it must be 3 years ago now that they put out an issue of Scooby-Doo Team Up where he teamed up with Harley Quinn. And all of a sudden everybody's like, ooh, this is a Harley Quinn book that has a really low print run. So it's like everybody on YouTube was running out trying to hunt down that Scooby-Doo Team Up with Harley Quinn because it had a low print run. And it was like a frenzy for a couple. I think GPAP even got in trouble with his LCS owner for something to do with that too. I remember talking to him on the off airs or something. Go, just apologize to him and move on with your life. There's no reason to feud with your LCS owner. But yeah, that issue was like the hottest thing for 2 weeks. Now I never hear or see it anymore. But every time I see a Scooby-Doo team-up book, that reminds me of it.
Was that at the same time they were doing the crossovers with the Warner Brothers characters?
I think it was a little before then.
Okay. I just wondered.
I don't think those were out. But it's been such a long time. I don't really know.
Yeah, to me, everything was like 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. The same.
Yeah.
Matter of fact,
it was 20 years ago. Yeah.
My LCS owner had a book in my pile that I didn't order. I was like, no. And John was the other guy who works there. I was like, you didn't order that? I'm like, he probably put it in there just because I usually get Seth stuff. But it was a soft cover version of George Sprott. And I was like, the hardcover came out for that like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I went and checked when the hardcover version actually came out. 2009. So it's like everything is 5 years ago for me, even 2009.
5 is the new 12. Or
there's just no. I was like, no, I don't need this. I have the hardcover. Right. Petty, man, this petty stuff is just nice.
Yeah.
Is that Mary Margaret?
Mary Margaret?
No.
That he had he had this sort of innocent style to all his pinups.
Mm-hmm.
There was kind of nothing lascivious about it, even though there were obviously sexy women.
Good girl art.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, it was not even good girl art, because good girl art is a little ironic. Kind of like, they're not actually good girls. That's more the 50s. This is the 30s, so it was sort of very earnest, pretty wholesome girls. There wasn't even, and of course he got his stuff painted on all sorts of World War II bombers, which it said in here that it was one guy painting all of those women on all the World War II bombers. They gave his name here. I forget where. No. But he was like with common house. But there was like, I guess he just fell into the job. He was probably just a soldier with artistic training. And he kind of fell into the job of painting the noses of bombers.
Well, they had different guys doing that in different fronts too. You had these, European and then the Pacific front. Completely different people doing it.
Well, they said he did most of them. Whoever I assumed it was different people too. I don't know why.
I'm just saying he probably.
I'm sure there were more than
space.
him, but he was like the main guy who they said
He was probably the guy
painted hundreds of bomber noses.
And this whole book's full of just aircraft nose art.
Don't know where it is, but I found that enough. There's so many like lots of little interesting asides there. Like his daughter was the model for all this stuff too. He used it, and she at the end she gives just. I mean, if you're interested in the artistic process, because she from when she was a little girl until she got married and moved out of the house, she was his assistant. And she just goes through a memoir here of his entire process. And it's just really interesting reading his process.
Gotcha.
I got a kick out of the times Sukiya used the likeness of Ornella Muti for beautiful and salacious covers, putting her in compromising positions. I don't know who any of those people are.
Yeah,
Used to love National Lampoon.
Ornella Muti was the
articles, of course. Who was I just mentioning? I was just mentioning. I want to know if I'll have to look see if their name is still by some. There are a couple of Italian illustrators and book designers who are doing they've done a lot the Balbuso Twins. Have you ever heard of them, Paolo?
No.
No, I have not. I've heard of the Barbarian Brothers, but I've never heard of the Balbuso.
The Balbuso. They're a couple of Italian illustrators and book designers, and I just noticed them because they're doing a Great Gatsby illustrated version. They do these sort of high-end classic books where they illustrate and design them and put them in a slipcover. And I think that they said this was their 30th book or something. I was like, oh, I've never heard of them.
Okay, gotcha.
But I'm interested. I was talking to Scott about this before we went on the air. Being that I've been on such a Great Gatsby kick, and I'm on my third Great Gatsby graphic novel there that I'm reading, I started looking into Great Gatsby illustrated versions too. That's why I stumbled onto those guys.
Yeah, if you go that route, you're just going to spend money.
I know. That's why
illustrated books, which I collect,
I'll see if I can take them out of the library.
Yeah.
I'm just going to burn money. They're actually not that expensive, but still, you add them up.
Compared to comics, they're more expensive.
Well, the ones I was looking at, the Gatsby ones, were $15.
Oh, okay, that's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all, but
I was
still,
thinking more like 150.
not only that one is $100. Any of you guys fans of Stephen Bissett? I've recently been tracking down all his Taboo.
I'm a huge fan of Steve Bissett. I actually have him as a Facebook friend, and I follow. His.
I think I have the first 3 Taboo anthologies, and then they got hard to find, and I was in college and never tracked them down.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. One of them has a Mobius story. He was selling. He found like a box of a whole bunch. He was selling some sets of them. It wasn't the complete run of all of them. At pretty decent prices. And they got some big name artists in those.
I think the first 3 came out regularly. Mm-hmm. And after that, they were all late. Possibly. Which made them much harder to find.
Right.
And what it was, I think, like I said, I think the first 3 came out when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And I still had a pull list back at my LCS at home. And I'd go home every month or 2 and pick up my pull list. But if it wasn't on my pull list, I occasionally went to actually more than maybe once every couple of weeks or so, I'd go to a comic shop that was near my college. But I had no pull list there. So I would just pull Taboo off the shelf. But once it became hard to find,
not only is Steve a good artist, he's a very good writer as well. He's written entire
Yeah.
books of nothing but analysis of different horror
From hell.
films, all kinds of. He worked in a video rental store for a long time too,
Right.
and he's still heavily into movies. And
I've never read Lost Girls. Have you guys read Lost Girls?
I think Tim has a copy of it, but I've never read Lost Girls. No.
No, neither of them.
There's one thing from Steve Bissett that I'd like to have, which is the Tyrant.
It's coming. He's working on it.
It's only 2 or 3 issues of it, right?
4, I think.
4 there was?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was all over Tyrant, and I still am.
Yeah, I imagine that
I'm there with bells on.
I imagine he would have almost all businesses fail because of lack of access to capital. Mm-hmm. That's the way capitalism works.
He's been burned a few times by publishers and things like that. Yeah. And he's kind of got burnt out on it. Not I can understand why.
Oh, I know.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Steve Bissett. Absolutely.
Yeah. I liked his Swamp Thing stuff.
Yeah.
Was that his first work, Swamp Thing, or did I see him before then? I'm trying to remember.
It wasn't his first work, but I think it was his probably first work for the big 2.
Yeah. He was a Kubert School kid, right?
Yeah, I think he did some Charlton stuff before that.
Charlton. Steve sent my son all 4 issues of Tyrant when he found out my kid was drawing Tyrant comics. Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I need more comics about dinosaurs. Yeah. Not only Tyrant, but also Age of Reptiles.
That's what I was just going to mention. Age of Reptiles is effing fantastic stuff.
Tankers from Bad Idea Comics was about killer dinosaurs and fighting soldiers.
Yeah.
Even once I leafed through an issue of Gone, that mini dinosaur manga that Paradox Press put out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it looked very interesting, very wholesome.
Well, supposedly Steve is working on some new Tyrant material. Now, when we're going to see it, I don't know, but he's been talking about it. So.
One of the comics I got this week, you could barely see the logo because it's in red on black, is the second printing of The Lot, #1, which I remember setting up the cover for like 2 months ago. So I thought it wasn't coming out. I didn't know. So it was there this week. I was like, I may as well pick up the second printing because my name's in it. So, but this is one of the comics I bought this week. That is like, I only got 5 comics this week, and only 3 of them are for reading. It's like this one is just for look. Matter of fact, I think this went to a different printer than the original Lot #1. So I want to compare and contrast them.
It's a different lot.
Yeah. See how the printing differs on them. I'm going to have to do that. But that's the first one. Like I said, my bill got really high this week at $37 because I got comic bags. That was $9.
Right.
Had to get 2 Bad Idea comics that got out because my name's in them. One was $10 and this was $6. So that's 25 out of the 37 right there. Usually when I spend $37, I get, 8 comics or something.
Well, it's only $148 a month if you extrapolate it.
Yeah, it's not so bad, but I like to keep it around $20, $25 a week.
I never really thought of it that way in terms of how much it costs per week. When I ordered stuff beforehand, I just make one monthly order and it's like.
Yeah, that's what it is. I go weekly, so of course I think about how much it costs per week. If you go monthly.
Rick Vetch, I haven't kept up with. I've got him as a Facebook friend too, but I haven't kept up with what he's doing here lately as much as I have Steve Bissett does. But they've been good buddies for years and years.
Who is that?
Rick Vetch.
Yeah.
Comment about Max Immortal.
I've never read Max Immortal.
Amazon. That's interesting. Huh.
I've never read Brat Pack either.
I have Brat Pack and Max Immortal.
I haven't read Brat Pack, but I have read Roaring Rick's Bit Fiends.
And I don't have the one either.
Who did the NAS?
Brian Talbot.
Okay.
The NAS was published by the Brazilian publisher, but I never saw those copies, and I was kind of. It's a comic that kind of fell off the cracks and nobody remembers.
I remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I've read a bit of Brian Talbot.
We were the only two.
Yeah, it's a.
Yeah. What was that one? Heart of Empire.
That's also by Brian Talbot.
Yeah, that I enjoyed that one. I remember that one's over.
I do like Art. It since it's dealing with time travel and everything, it can be a little hard to follow.
That's time travel for you.
Or dimensional, other dimensions and things. Yeah, it gets complicated. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, Rick Veitch is still doing his Max Immortal comics, self-publishing through Amazon.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was doing it through Amazon. That's interesting.
Check that out. Spend about 15-20 on single issues, much more in collected edition. Yeah, I get most of my collected editions for Christmas and birthdays. I used to buy just because I like buying singles. So back like for like 3 years, from like 2007 through 2010, I was buying a lot of collected editions. Tom Veitch wrote the notes.
See, it seems like that's one of the things that kind of brought me to think about it. Is I think he may have been involved with that book.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I gotta look it up. That's gonna drive me crazy, though.
Yeah, that's not a drive. That's a short putt.
That's a Google. Other people have beer runs. I have Google runs. You know.
Yeah.
Actually, that doesn't sound very good.
But comics that nobody remembers.
Yeah.
Comics. That's half my collection. I got stuff I don't even remember that I bought 5 years ago. Yeah, Tom being Rick's brother. I remember him, his brother, Tom. I've forgotten about him until you just brought him up again.
The NAS was published in Brazil in 92.
Yeah, it was Tom Veitch. Okay.
Why do I remember it being published in Brazil in 89?
I don't know. That's a good question. When was it originally published?
Yeah, because I remember the ads in the Brazilian magazines for this, and it was kind of weird because I wasn't used to seeing more adult comics being published by Abril.
I mean, it tells me here the DC's version of it came out in 1990. So.
Oh, okay. So in Brazil in 92, yeah, that makes sense.
No, you know what's funny about this Petty book too? It's the only book on George Petty. For a guy who was once so popular, and I've seen plenty of books on other illustrators. Right. I just happened, like I said, after I got that card, those cards I was showing you that I dug out that I forgot I ever had.
Right.
I was like, well, let's see if there's a book on him. I was like, if he had a card set in '93, there must be.
Yeah, it's funny. There's
a few books on him.
Yeah,
this came out in '97. And it's the only one.
There's some artists you would think that would have more books out on their careers than they do, and then there's other ones that have multiple books. You know, there's tons of Frazetta books, and you know, several books on Alex Toth. You know?
Yeah. That the reason I didn't read them was because they were superhero satire. Not that I think that's bad, but that's kind of always superhero satire is like on the bottom of my reading list.
Well, it's also very cynical superhero satire.
Yeah, well,
comedic like Tick is. Did we lose?
Matter of fact, I remember coming to this another Watchmen. I remember we were having a Watchmen discussion ages ago, and we kind of came to this conclusion, which I've been thinking about since then. And I kind of agree with is that they're satirical of the industry as well. Yep, is that. Watchmen is kind of the only critique / satire of superheroes that's done lovingly. That's why people love it. Because it really is a comment on superheroes, but it's not done comedically, and it's not really done as satire. It's done sort of by taking it really, really seriously.
Right.
Even though it's not, like it's, even though, Alan Moore is even, they've discussed it, or it's a commentary on sort of the absurdities of superheroes, but it was done with kind of reverent. It's like, Watchmen is really in the same sort of category as Max Immortal, and except it's not cynical. It's not humorous. So it's like it's its own category, and I think that's also why it's beloved. It's
more of a traditional literary bent.
Yeah. But almost all sort of critiques of superhero-ness are done with humor. Super Duper Man.
Yeah, I mean, that goes all the way back to Harvey Kurtzman.
Yeah. Great story. But Watchmen isn't. Veitch was really pissed off at DC when he started Brat Pack. But yeah.
Do you think that the French novel Arsène Lupin versus Sherlock Holmes counts as a parody of Sherlock Holmes?
What one is that?
In the late 19th century, they tried doing a crossover between Arsène Lupin and Sherlock Holmes, but they couldn't get the rights to Sherlock Holmes, so they turned the character into Sherlock Holmes, and every description of him is exactly the opposite of what Sherlock Holmes is.
That could be satire.
I'm gonna close out and come back because I don't know if it's browser lag or whatever, but everything's lagging really bad, so I'll be back here in a minute.
Okay. He's got to quit out.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking here at the stuff that Editora Abril put out in 1992, and all of a sudden, this does not jibe with my memories, because Marvel was already publishing stuff by McFarlane in the Hulk.
Yeah.
They had the Captain America stories featuring John Walker, and yet it was the same year as they put out not only the Nas, but also Batman Master of the Future, Batman Dracula Red Rain, Punisher Blood on the Moors. And I thought some of these were earlier.
I don't remember, man. I can't even put years on those ones because I didn't pay that much attention to them.
But I'm looking at this. They reprinted the Captain Marvel and Adam Warlock stories by Jim Starlin. They were still running the Star Trek comics.
We're still getting satire over the treatment of creators, man. Man, oh man.
They put up some Blueberry.
Up there, Scott. Add him to the stream, see if he stopped lagging.
Yeah, everything's much better now. I think the browser just was being goofy.
Sometimes things just need to be started over.
Yep, the IT crowd.
Need to be left alone to die.
I have no interest in the comic, but nice Panther cover there.
Can't even hardly see it.
A girly shot.
Isn't Panther Vampirella's daughter or something?
I don't know. Let's see if it says here. For millennia, Panther has endured her punishment for angering a powerful goddess, hiding herself away from the world, the ugliness of humanity. But now something is killing the gods. It falls upon Panther to save the Pantheon in Panther #1.
Pantheon.
Lady Mechanica #1 was good. I've ended up putting that on my pull list for the 4 issues.
I remember when it originally came out. I just liked the steampunkiness of the art, but
yeah,
I couldn't even tell you a thing about the story. So.
I'm now looking at the stuff that Abril put out in '91. Yeah, all my memories of that time are all jumbled up. Because in '91 they put out Badger Goes Berserk.
See, I don't even think of Magnor as a superhero parody as much as I think it's just Sergio doing what Sergio does.
I forgot that even existed.
That was the first.
Magnor.
I think it was the first pop-up comic that was published that had a pop-up cover.
Yeah, I love the art on Lady Mechanica. I read like the free comic book day Lady Mechanica and wasn't impressed, but I decided to finally give it a try with this latest series. And I thought the first issue was pretty solid. And since it's a 4-issue mini, I was like, you know what, I may as well get the other 3 and give it a try. But like I said, I liked the first issue. So, and this Silver Surfer picture just reminded me that in this book, probably won't come across on screen, and I think it was the mid-50s, they had Petty design a hood ornament for one of his Petty girls and one of the car companies. And it so reminds me of the Silver Surfer. It's amazing. Probably won't be able to see just because it's chrome and it's this woman lying down.
Yeah.
And it almost looks like she's lying on a surfboard.
Mm-hmm.
And her face is kind of not detailed. It's got that Silver Surfer sort of face.
Very Art Deco kind of a.
Which car was that?
This is the Nash hood ornament.
Okay.
The Nash Flying Lady. 1954 New Continental Dream Cars. Nash Airlifts. But I was just like, wow, this reminds me so much of the Silver Surfer. That is just amazing.
I could see that.
Like, that could have inspired. I'm sure Jack Kirby and most guys knew about hood ornaments of the day, so maybe it inspired them 10 years later, but who knows? But like I said, it just reminded me of it. I was like, wow, that's really silvery. And
that just seems like that's the kind of car that Mike Kaluta would like to draw.
Never even heard of Petty. He's definitely one of my illustrators. Yeah, I actually only reheard of him now because it was like last week or the week before I dug out a box of trading cards from the early 90s, and there were some George Petty trading cards in there, and I was like, who is that? Obviously I knew who he was in 1993 when I bought the cards, but I didn't remember him, or at least I knew about him because of the trading cards.
You see, back then you bought them out of the Petty Cash Fund.
Exactly. And but I was like, I forgot completely about him. He's really, like I said, he and
Vargas
Rockwell were the top 2 illustrators in the 30s and 40s.
I think Vargas probably has more name recognition.
Now he does, yeah. And they even signed his name Varga. They took the S off his name, Esquire.
The artist formerly known as Vargas.
Yeah. Varga. And copyrighted his signature. I want to read his story now. I want to have to find because that sounds interesting.
See, this is how it snowballs. This is how you start spending lots of money. I've been down this path many times. Yeah.
Luckily, this one was cheap.
Yeah, that one's not bad.
Like I said, I went on Amazon and saw them. They're usually around $30 or $40.
Right.
They had a $10 version.
There are
one. I was like, good enough for me. I'll get the $10 one. Thank you.
There are 2 monographs like that on Alex Raymond, and the first one is better than the second one. And that first one, it's almost like a landscape format kind of book. I have a copy of it, but that one's very hard to find now, and it's expensive when you can find a copy. I'm glad I got it when I did. Yeah.
Speaking of landscape format, J.H. Williams' Echo Lands is getting a hardcover in a couple of months.
Hopefully, the landscape format hardcover.
Right. I think the list price was $35.
Okay, that's
I told myself that I didn't want to spend $5 a comic for it, but I'd get the hardcover if it came out. So I'm actually gonna put the hardcover on my wish list.
How many issues is the series supposed to be? Do you remember?
I don't know.
I was gonna say if it's more than 7 issues, then you're saving money. $5 a pop. Yeah.
I assume it was ongoing. James M. and Moneypenny. Hello.
Oh, so now wait a minute. We got to figure out which one of us who each one is.
Well, I'm Moneypenny because I'm obviously the hottest. She was the hottest of the 3 of them, and that's me.
Fair enough. I gotta say that Paolo has to be Bond because he's into cars.
Yeah.
And I'll be Q because I like gadgets and toys.
Yes, I probably make Sean Connery's accent better than all of you.
I don't doubt it. Although if you do Sean Connery's accent from Highlander 2, that's not anything to brag about.
If you cannot get out of a tunnel in 3 minutes, you've no business being there.
That was Patrick Nagel. That was the Playboy artist that did that simple line style.
Nagel.
Yeah,
Patrick Nagel, right.
He was very influenced by Japanese woodblock prints.
He screams 1980s, Patrick Nagel.
Oh, big time.
He is like the 1980s illustrator.
For advertising and that sort of style,
Yeah, that's the one thing that scares me about the hardcover is the
gutter bleeding.
Is the binding. If I don't like the binding, I might go back and get the individual comics. I don't know. It was just $5 for 20 pages. Just made me go, oh.
Yeah.
That's all it was, It's amazing how some comics. It all depends on what's on my pull list, what's in my budget. If my pull list is full now, and there's a $5 comic that's only 20 pages of comic, I might go, ah. But if my pull list is nearly empty, and I might go, put that on. So it's amazing how that.
That you brought that format thing up in the binding. I'm wondering if Promethea would be a better read in floppies than it would.
I've
compilations.
I've heard the binding on Promethea wasn't good specifically.
Because I understand that's really a book that you want to get the full experience on.
Right. Because I usually like reading things better. Matter of fact, reading things better in comic form. I picked up the facsimile edition of Conan the Barbarian #1.
How much was that?
Well, $4.
Okay, that's not terrible.
The True Believers ones are $1. The facsimiles have the ads in them and are
okay, gotcha.
The old ads.
I have the True Believer version.
Yeah, that's the difference between the two.
Is that recolored?
Yeah, color.
Okay,
but I think this is the age of the half-page ads.
Right now, is that using the original color from?
Yes,
the 70s.
I think so. Yeah, there's no airbrushing in here, but it's on glossy paper.
That's fine.
Yeah, this looks like the original color.
I guess Ralph Reese won't be buying that one.
But it was like J-Rock was commenting on this. He's like, they use the glossy paper, which is the same paper as the trade, so I have no reason to buy that. I'm like, right. I just like it as an individual comic. These sort of. That's kind of how I like to experience. I mean, I got nothing against getting it in a collected edition, of course.
Right.
But I also like looking at it as a comic book kind of thing.
I can see that.
Williams is one of my favorite artists, so I understand that. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I've like I said, I think my comic shop has extra copies of them. I've even thought about going back and getting them on a slow week, but because it is a beautiful comic, but I just haven't. Started reading Promethea 3 or 4 times. Never got to. The beginning part of Promethea is pretty easy to get through. It's just sort of a Wonder Woman take. But then as he gets more and more into mysticism and the Kabbalah, pardon me, Jewish mysticism specifically,
right,
it's either more interesting or not as interesting, however you feel about it. But it really is kind of a different thing after it gets started. I have Prometheus single issues and trades. Would love to have the absolutes for the size of the pages, but I have some gutter loss.
That's exactly what I was wondering.
I've heard bad things about the binding of Promethea.
Well, isn't
absolutes?
Aren't like some of the issues of Promethea designed so that you can look at them from all different angles?
The last issue is designed to take the staples out.
Okay.
And put it together as one big image. Which is why the last issue is hard to find, because people like me bought one copy to read and one copy to
what I was going to bring up. As a collector, you can't bring yourself to not have a pristine copy, so you got to get a second copy so you can take it apart.
Right. Matter of fact, if anybody ever wants one, I made scans and pieced it all together of the Promethea.
Gotcha.
I'll have to post a link one night. Can't ever have enough Conan Barry Windsor Smith reproductions. Yeah. Though I love the cover of this one. This is just a classic cover. The art on the inside isn't quite as, it's very young, early Barry Windsor.
A lot of people don't realize it, but if you look at that cover, that's a lot of Kirby influence.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, ton, and the inside even more. He was very much a Kirby guy in the beginning.
Barry Windsor Smith only starts becoming Barry Windsor Smith around issue 10.
Yeah, and you know what's weird? I was looking at because I was looking to get a good high res scan of the original cover after I got this, so I could sort of compare and contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of variety in the original issue. See this blurb down the bottom here?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's right on the bottom of the comic where the trim is, and sometimes it's up a little higher.
Shifted up.
It's like the amount of variety in it shifting on the printer is amazing. It was just like I never realized that before looking at the Conan cover, but it's like because like the first one I found, it was trimmed right. I'm like, is this comic trimmed?
Is it just the way they crop the file?
Yeah. Yeah, he was 18 years old and emulated Kirby. Yeah, he was told to emulate Kirby too, because he was young and learning.
He progressed really fast.
Yeah, those Dark Horse. I used to have those hardcovers from Dark Horse, but I sold them too. The coloring.
You're killing me, Jared. You're killing me. I wish I had those.
Yeah. The Dark Horse ones?
Yeah.
No, you don't want the Dark Horse hardcovers.
I do. I know why you say I don't, and I get it, but I still
okay.
Them because
they actually creeped me out a little too, because the color of the like fake leather on them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I wasn't a fan of. They did that with some Star Wars books too.
Well, yeah, it was like a Caucasian flesh tone. It looked like a flesh-colored book.
Not the rich Corinthian leather that.
It was like weird. Conan, yes. I have the Conan Essentials too. That's a really nice. It's really good to see that, stuff in black and white printed on newsprint.
That's a hard book to
enjoy
find.
Looking at it that way.
That Essentials volume is very hard to find.
Yeah. Well, they stopped. I have the Conan Omnibus by Marvel and emulates the original colors. Yeah. Corey Settlemeyer wouldn't let it print.
I wouldn't mind having the Conan Omnibus by Marvel.
Yeah.
But that white logo that they use for the trade dress for the spine, just rubs me the wrong way. I don't know what it is. That stark red and white contrast.
The Marvel one?
Yeah.
Like, hold on.
Yeah, it's a first world problem, but
Barry Windsor Smith only starts becoming Barry Windsor Smith around Conan number 10, but the first time he actually.
well,
Yeah.
see, that's not bad because that's a black spine, but when it's on a white spine,
Oh, okay. They have it on a
I don't
white.
know, something my artistic brain just looks at it and say that could have been done better. That's just me.
Windsor Smith starts coming out of his shell in that Star the Slayer story, one-shot story that he did.
Now, considering the amount of time from that first one to when you're talking about he came into his own art style, that's a very rapid progression.
It is.
Very rapid.
If you compare to that X-Men issue, fill-in issue that he did, where he's just tracing over Kirby,
Right.
then he does a Star the Slayer, and he really starts coming out. You see it more in the splash page than the story, because he has to build all the panels and stuff. He does more Kirby, and then Conan number 1 is too Kirby-ish, but it starts moving, and by the time you get to number 10, it's kind of himself now.
He's not a Kirby clone anymore, right?
Considering his environment, I think his age and his environment, I don't think his progress was that. I think his progress was probably right on course in terms of he had the benefit of the studio.
Yeah.
With him, Kaluta,
Wrightson and Jones.
Wrightson, and all four of them working together.
Mm-hmm.
All four of them being very interested in illustration.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the perfect. And if he was on his own in a studio by himself, I don't think his progress would be as much. But right. I think because of the situation he was in, I would hope his progress would be that fast. How could it not be? Well, that
compared to other artists that are similar to him that didn't come along at that same time,
yeah,
he progressed pretty fast.
But I think he progressed pretty fast because of his situation.
Sure,
that's why he progressed fast. There's no better situation to be in than to share a studio with three of your friends who are really talented.
Oh,
and you're all learning. You're all learning at the same time.
The stories they tell about the studio days are really funny too, because all kinds of people came over to visit. All kinds of stuff happened there.
I can tell you when I went to art school, we were probably right around that age they were when they were working. Maybe they were a little older.
Yeah.
But we had a great studio. Most of the people I'm still friends with all these years later. I mean, we had a great studio, a great learning situation. This is at school. And my friend Ed has always wanted to recreate that, but it's you can't. It's nearly impossible. You have to be young, around each other,
and have
some money for a studio.
Yeah, have rents what they used to be in the 70s versus what they are today.
Yeah. So it's like, I think his situation was really set up for him to learn really fast.
Yeah, he was really in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. That accelerated his growth as an artist, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think without that, his growth as an artist would have taken longer.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't competitive per se, but they wanted to outdo each other.
Right. And they also wanted to cooperate with each other too. It's not like they'd keep secrets. Not like there were any secrets to keep, but I'm sure if they discovered something new, the first thing they wanted to do was share it with their buddies.
I also think
if he had just stayed in the UK, he'd lose himself doing regular assignments for IPC war magazines, and he'd never have developed anything.
Yeah.
I also think it's a crying shame that the studio book never got republished.
Yeah. Man, now that you mention it, I don't think I've seen that book since the 90s.
I have it in the other room. So.
I never got a copy. You know what?
I
never got a copy of it.
No.
Because everyone I knew in at school in the 80s had it, and at Marvel in the early 90s had it. So it's like it was just always around me, so I never got a copy of it.
Right.
And I just realized now that I haven't seen it since sometime in the 90s.
You can get a beat up copy of it for just one limb. If you want to get a pristine copy of it, it's going to cost you.
Yeah, I don't care about pristine, as is evidenced by the petty copy I got.
I mean, that's in fine shape. I'd buy a book.
Which it's actually in good shape. It's just the, it's a little bent up on the dust cover, which I don't care.
Yeah, you can put that under a stack of other books and press that out. So.
And it's just like I'm not a dust cover guy. To me, what's in the book is what's important.
Right. Smalllock brings up a couple of good points. He's talking about Barry Windsor Smith's storyteller that was in the format. I'll be honest with you, I hated the colors because he used so much purple and so much yellow that the Los Angeles Lakers couldn't get jerseys that year.
Yeah, the Conan Saga were magazine. I mean, they were reprints, weren't they?
Yeah.
Conan Saga was reprints of Savage Sword of Conan.
Right.
But they all had new covers, and he did a few covers. Those really nice ones too.
I was okay with his colors too. I mean, they're distinctive. Comic fans don't seem.
I like his coloring earlier when he started doing his career. The farther he went along, he just used so much purple and so much yellow. It really started to bother me.
Yeah, that didn't bother me. I just accepted it. I was like, okay, he likes pink and purple. I'll go with that. I think it's even more literally than figuratively, because that's the reason that Barry Windsor Smith's storyteller failed, is because it was a size that's clumsy.
I'm one of those guys that loves those odd format books. I like them. I realize retailers hate them because they don't fit into the cookie cutter mold of what they put out on the stand.
Once again, I love those too, but as I always say, if your marketing ideas are up my alley, they're not going to work.
Yeah.
Because I have my own sort of quirky tastes, and they don't overlap with what's popular that often.
Well, one other thing that I don't know if blacklisted is the right word to use, but once the Opus books came out, which are the two art books, monographs on Barry, in the second one, he wrote a lot of stuff about his UFO experiences. And after that, no publisher wanted to touch him.
See, I don't think any publisher would care about that. No editor I know would care about
not as much now, but back then, it was like, no.
I mean, back then, no one would care. None of the editors I knew would care if he.
Editors are one thing. Publishers are,
Yeah, but the editors are who do the hiring. Well, now it's kind of different, but back then it was the editors who were doing the hiring.
I mean, this is just an art book.
Yeah, it was more about if you could make a deadline or not, Right. And I'm sure that they didn't have enough money in the budget for Barry Windsor Smith.
And he's still better to this day, both at Dark Horse and wait a minute, who else was it? Who else did he do work for back then?
I can understand being not wanting to do business with anyone who did me wrong.
He never felt that they did enough to actually promote the books properly.
Right. I can understand that. Hey, let's do a read, rip, and slab. Let's see what I got lined up. Oh, August 1963, Scary Comics. Ventures into the Unknown, number 144. Ghost Stories, number 4. Unknown Worlds, 27. Do you think any one of them is the least bit scary?
Probably.
You have 2 ACG books.
Aha. Yeah, I stayed away from the Marvel and DC stuff. I wanted to get something a little
but
different.
ACG?
Yeah. I have not read. Did ACG do Herbie?
Yep, that was the only good thing they did.
That might
ACG was run by was run by who?
I don't remember.
I don't
think
know.
they're run by Donenfeld's brother-in-law or something, or
Oh,
son-in-law.
I don't know much about ACG. But
Yeah,
Unknown Worlds has got the devil in it, so that interests me a little.
All those stories are written by different people, but it turns out all of them were the editor-in-chief. So anything that people think that Stan Lee did, this guy actually did.
Ghost Stories. I don't think I've ever seen an issue of Ghost Stories by Dell.
Yeah.
Okay, read Adventures into the Unknown, slab Ghost Stories, rip Unknown Worlds.
I think that's what I would have to do too.
I don't think I think I'm going to slab Unknown Worlds. That devil cover I like.
That devil cover reminds me too much of Coop, the artist.
Probably where he got his style from.
Possibly. And you
That
know,
is just the worst.
The cover is going to be far, far better than the interiors.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to read Adventures into the Unknown or Ghost Stories? I think Adventures in the Unknown looks more intriguing to me. Why is that guy waving a plunger?
Looks like a DC book.
Yeah,
it really does. Just even the logo font reminds me of a DC title.
Yeah,
he bought Opus Volume 1 from BWS Icon and he signed it. That's cool.
I just want to know how a guy in green shorts and suspenders is dangerous enough.
Yeah, I'm reading Adventures into the Unknown, ripping Ghost Stories, and slabbing Unknown Worlds. No one likes the devil cover but me?
No, the devil is absolutely not scary. Reminds me of that image that runs around the internet. Yeah, I'm the devil. So
yeah, why is he wearing shorts and suspenders? Always the question. Always the question.
He's suspending his disbelief.
And that reminds me of another tidbit in this. Was they mentioned? I think it was in the 40s. Petty was also like a big game hunter. So he went up to Alaska to hunt bear all the time and went on these wilderness vacations. They said he really the hunting didn't really interest him as much as hanging out with the guys did.
Right.
And since he was sort of, like I said, illustrators were pretty big stars at that time. So the people he hobnobbed with were the upper crust too. And they specifically mentioned two of the people, we hobnobbed with were the Fawcett brothers, who, of course, and they even mentioned the Fawcett brothers. They had a publishing empire of all these magazines, of which Captain Marvel made them nearly half their profits. It was like, whoa!
Captain Marvel sold a lot of copies back.
Sold a lot of copies.
Yeah.
Maybe he's Swiss. You're right. But it was interesting.
Lederhosen.
I didn't even know there was. I never gave the name Fawcett because I don't know that much about Fawcett comics. I never gave their name a thought, but there was twin. I think it said it was twin brothers who ran the companies. Fawcett. It's like, oh, okay. A little comic book connection to Petty. Of course, it was with the bosses and not the comic book artists. But man, what a difference between that. This is why all comic book artists in the 30s and 40s wanted to be comic strip artists or illustrators.
Because that's where the money was.
Yeah. That is really where the money was.
You want that Hal Foster, Alex Raymond type money.
Yeah, that's something I didn't get a chance to talk too much about with Mike Grell last Saturday.
Well, that's right. How'd that go?
That went pretty well, considering we had to do it online. There were like 4 people in the audience.
Gotcha.
But it went pretty well. Pretty well. I mean, I asked him a question, and the guy talked for 20 minutes. He was very enthusiastic about talking about it.
That's far better than asking somebody a question they don't hardly say anything at all.
Yeah. It was great. If he was there, it would have been great.
Did you learn anything interesting? Any tidbits you can share with us?
Yeah. When he did Warlord, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, even if he didn't own it. And he said they kind of chewed his head, but why are you giving it away to them? You won't own anything. But he kind of have carte blanche when he did Warlord. And when people talked about the Earths, there's Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth Warlord.
Yeah.
Guitar,
Earth Warlord.
And they kind of did the same when it did Green Arrow. He did have carte blanche to do whatever he wanted, and it just didn't want to do superheroes.
Right.
What's
What's he working on now?
He's doing. I think he wants to do some scripts for see if he can get John Sable back into TV and movies, but this time well done. And he did I think he also wants to do a novel. I think he's also interested in doing a novel. He said, yeah, he already done a novel and he wants to do some more. But he's doing more advertising work now.
Okay. Yeah, John Sable is one of those series I bought as it was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read since the 80s, but I still have the issues on my shelf because there's no way to get rid of them.
So you're going to have to brush up on your Sable.
Yeah. I thought nobody kind of want, I don't want to just throw them out or anything like that, but it's not like a comic that's in demand.
I'd read
it. It's like there's nobody to sell it, so they'll just sit there. Maybe I'll read it someday.
Gotcha. Paolo, is that interview on YouTube?
No, although I did record it, but my cell phone has terrible sound quality, so I'm going to see what I can do with this.
The reason I asked that is a couple of friends of mine do the Warlord World podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about my Grail, and I thought they may be interested in that. So.
How old was Grail when he did Warlord?
Would have been in his 40s, I think.
No, he was still early 30s.
Early 30s? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what he started out on? Because I don't remember him before that.
He started doing as an assistant on Brenda Starr.
Okay.
Before he switched to DC.
I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
He said he'd rather work on comic strips because where he grew up, that's what he had the most was newspapers.
Rather work on comic strip because it's less work for more money.
Mm. He did 2 years on Tarzan.
He did 2 years on Tarzan? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, doing a comic strip is work. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, you have to hit your deadlines.
Yeah. But a comic book, it's even more work.
Although he quit Green Lantern, Green Arrow, because Warlord became a monthly, because he couldn't do both.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember him on that. I completely forgot about those.
This is the thing. Nobody talks about it. Everybody keeps bringing up Danny O'Neill, Neil Adams. Yeah. Mike Grell takes over from Neil Adams, and nobody likes to remember it.
Nobody remembers Green Lantern. They remember now Blackest Night, the Neil Adams stuff, and then nothing. I mean, think about it. What Green Lantern is in the public in the comic book buyer's mind at all? I never thought about that.
That crappy movie. Well, it wasn't that bad.
I mean, just the comics. What comics do you hear about as that you have to read? It's a great Green Lantern run.
The Green Arrow, Green Lantern.
Yeah, the Neil Adams stuff.
Run. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but Mike Grell's a continuation, and it's still written by Danny O'Neill.
I know, but no one. All of a sudden, it's like it's all these years of Green Lantern, all these years between Neil Adams and Blackest Night. No one cares about the Green Lantern. It's amazing when I think about it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
People liked Kyle Rayner.
Yeah.
He was all right. He was better than what's his name? Guy Gardner.
Yeah.
Mm.
And what's Guy Gardner known for? Getting punched out by Batman.
Yeah, they did get some notice with the other Green Lantern.
Well, yeah. The thing is, there was that after the crisis, Steve Englehart kind of turned Green Lantern into a team book, and he brought a bunch of them to Earth, and that's when he introduced Kilowog.
Mm-hmm.
And those were kind of interesting because
I like Kilowog.
Yeah, man, everybody loves Kilowog. Kilowog is probably the most interesting Green Lantern ever.
I even like Mort. Yeah.
No, let's not go there.
Did anyone read the Grant Morrison Green Lantern?
No,
not officially.
Green Lantern,
but yes,
long time.
Not officially.
Yeah, I got to go buy a legitimate version.
Ah, okay.
But Grant Morrison has a pretty good idea on what a Green Lantern is supposed to do, and you notice that when he wrote the Justice League, he had as much as people at the time liked the Ron Martin's writing Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
Grant Morrison is the one who really understood how the ring is supposed to work.
I have a friend who will never forget. I don't remember which writer turned Hal evil. But whoever it was, I don't know, Jeff John, whoever the writer was, he will never
a lot of Barry Windsor Smith
for the rest of his life.
Thank God that guy is gone. Sometimes I go over here to highlight a comment and it kicks me right out. Once a week it seems to be doing that. I don't know why.
Gotcha.
Hope you guys said the same when I left. I'd be insulted if you didn't. I didn't say it, but I thought it. I think someone was in the middle of talking just as you were leaving.
Terrence, would it bother you if you just tell we didn't even bring your name up when it happened? Oh, God.
And let's see, I got another Bad Idea comic. This is going to be a weekly comic. We got it all out, so it's going to come out on time. Odin's Eye, Odin with 2 N. And this is a $10 comic. It's 72 pages, which is, 2.5 Marvel and DC comics. So I guess the price is right on point.
It is cool. That's 72 cents a page.
That's how much comics cost.
72 cents a page.
But really good. And this is the one by what's his name? Tomas Giarello. Oh, there's a funny story that goes with this too. Mm-hmm. Tomas Giarello has been doing a few things for Bad Idea Comics. And as we were getting this done, for some reason, one of the guys above us said, put an H in, there's a misspelling, put an H in Tomas's name. So the guy I'm working with is even going, why is he Tom? He's been Tomas all the times we worked with him. Why is he Thomas now? So in all 5 issues of this, he's credited on the cover and in the credits page as Thomas Giarello. And just yesterday, I heard the guy I was working with was laughing. He said, guess what? The guy who told us to do that made a mistake. We misspelled his name on all 5 issues. Because someone told us to.
Oops.
So it is Tomas Giarello. He's not Thomas for this series for some reason.
There's another guy did some work on Dark Horse's Conan stuff.
But this was a really good story. It takes place in, what year is it? 450 CE or something like that, it says. And it's about this girl who sees a vision of Odin. Where does it take place? In the years 535 and 536 CE, historically severe short-term cooling of the northern hemisphere occurred, and that's where this takes place.
The mini ice age.
Yeah. Right. So what happens is what's weird is there's kind of, we see Odin as this comes to her in a dream. So it's like we're not real. I'm not really 100% sure that Odin is real, but he certainly affects the plot line as if he's real. He certainly, that they kind of so this little girl, and she's little, she's, I don't know, 10. She has this dream where Odin speaks to her dream. And there's this really cool part where Odin speaks to her, and since it's like the voice of this god, she can't, it just like washes over her and she can't even hear what he's saying, and it just knocks her for a loop. And she's had fits all her life. So it's like her parents call somebody over to one of the village guys to try and figure out what's going on, because she's had this dream about, she had this vision of Odin. So this is important somehow. So they have to notify some of these guys. And it really does a good job of capturing life in that time period and sort of what was important to these people and how the gods affected their life, and not in a supernatural way, but in sort of a human way of how, you know, they put stock in this stuff.
So it's in a historical
way
view. Yeah.
And so it turns out they think, well, they say they're like, Odin hasn't blessed her, he's cursed her, because sometimes like she's a berserker, which is one of these fierce Norse fighters who they work themselves up to a frenzy and become unstoppable in battle.
That's kind of a myth in and of itself.
I know, yeah, I understand. But anyway, she comes, and they're like, oh my God, this poor girl. She just like loses her mind and attacks people. She attacks her people trying to protect her too.
Right.
So
like when you scratch its back.
Yeah. So she ends up going on this. She has to go on this, and actually, the reason this is so big is they decided to put the first 2 issues in one issue. It was originally going to be 6 issues, and they made it 5 and said we're going to make the first issue extra big. And it's just this, and it turns out that Odin is trying to stop Ragnarok. So he ended up in the stories, he threw his eye. The reason he's got one eye is he threw his eye into the well to make a deal to get this omniscient knowledge.
Right.
And he knows that he's going to die during Ragnarok by the giant wolf that eats him. And he asks the person who we made the deal with, is there any way I can stop this? And he said something about, you have to do something with your 2 eyes. I can't remember what the exact thing was. He's like, so this girl, I think the story is this girl actually ends up on a quest for Odin's eye to stop Ragnarok. And like I said, it's done historically really well. The art is terrific. The writing is good. Like I'm a fan of history, and it feels like a historical story more than a fantasy story.
Gotcha. I mean, just based on the cover there, she looks like she's an apt pupil.
It's just good stuff. I'm, like I said, really enjoy. Worth the $10. But definitely, if you can get your hand on some Bad Idea comics, Odin's Eye's the one to get.
I think I would have to drive 3 hours one way to find a shop that carries those.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's a long drive.
It is.
You can get them on eBay, too.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
For fairly cheap. Matter of fact, once again, I was looking at slabs on eBay. Because every now and then I say to myself, I really should get a slab in my collection. That is too bad. Because they've been making some good comics, but they're not everywhere is the problem. But if you can find Odin's Eye online, it's worth it. But once again, I was looking at stop sizzling light. Every now and then I just get into my head, I should have a slabbed comic just for just as a, as an object of art kind of thing.
Right.
Just to have, because everyone seems to have slabbed comics. I've got none. Shouldn't I have one?
I don't.
Shouldn't that be Terrence, the master of the slab? So I was.
Well, the plastic in the slabs is not archival.
No.
I don't think a lot of people.
But the plastic it's in is. The slab itself isn't archival, but the sleeve it's in is.
But did they include sleeves like that in the early ones?
Yeah. It's always in it's sealed in a sleeve.
Okay.
Come on,
I'm
Jared.
trying to figure out which comic I would like to own as a slab if I owned one slab.
Me too. That's what I'm always thinking. And I just happen to be looking at Bad Idea comics because I was like, oh, how much a slab of one of those is? And you can actually they're fairly cheap in that you can get some random Bad Idea comic for $50 or $60 slabbed.
What
But then I say to myself, I don't want to spend $50 or $60.
Right. What company was it published that cover you were talking about 1 or 2 weeks ago? It was like the DPI rate was.
That was the Gatsby one.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
That was I can't remember their name. They don't publish many comics.
I was thinking you should slab that one.
No way. But it's like if I were to get a slabbed comic, that meant something to me. Yeah, I could get some of my own comics, like the comics I made slabbed, Delia Charmer, something like that, from the 90s, but I don't even want to do that. It's like I could get what I consider the beginning of my collection slabbed, Hulk 200, but So it's always kind of like weird.
Yeah, I don't have the slab gene, so.
Yeah, I kind of want to get one as a conversation piece. I have a couple of cases that are magnetized so you can switch a book out. Oh, cool.
I don't want slabs either, but if I had one, it would have to be a slab of something that nobody else would want slabbed.
Right, me too.
Ralph Snort.
I like the. I got one of these cases that's just pre-slab, which is from the 90s. I got this. I just happen to have this really black copy of Wolverine I put in it. But it's just like it screws together.
Yeah.
Got it. Marvel's generic comic.
The one with the UPC symbol.
Yeah. That would be a perfect slab.
Barcode, yeah.
I think I'd rather have the Marvel No Prize book slabbed.
Mm.
I think I would get the Mad magazine with the middle finger.
Also, I have a copy of Arctic Comics in a case as well. One of our storyboards did it back in the day. Okay.
Okay.
Let's just all laugh at Scott for a moment. Ha 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 ha
ha ha.
Yes, I fart in your general direction.
I wave my private parts at your aunties.
And this was the one comic that was on my pull list this week. Regarding the matter of Oswald's body, issue number 2 of 5, I think this is. I really enjoyed this issue.
I can see somebody doing a parody book called "The Matter of Patton Oswalt's Body."
But it's like the first issue was. We get a couple of pages of them digging up Oswald's body in like 81. Then it flashes it back to the 60s and 63, right before the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
And the first issue I really enjoyed the art and storytelling on. But that was kind of a getting the band together story.
Right.
Where he was getting this group of people and they're tasked with finding someone who looks like Oswald. a loser with no connections. And there's kind of these 4 random people who this one guy kind of has something on.
Mhm.
One is a bank robber. I forget what the other 4 are, but they're kind of not, they're not like hardened criminals or anything. They're kind of normal-ish people who ended up on the wrong side of the law a little bit. So he's hired them and kind of using a little leverage to get them to do stuff. And so they're like, all right, we found this guy. And he's like, well, now you got to kidnap him. Bring him to me. And they're like, what? We got to kidnap him? So he ends up, well, I'll give you $2,000 a piece for this. So they're like, ah. So they end up like doing it and kidnapping this guy. And he's like, what the hell's going on? And the way the story was told was very well done. And they end up kidnapping this guy and bringing him to this house. And then the guy's like, well, now I need you to shoot him in the stomach. They're like, freaking no way. They're like, we've got, and that's when they realize that they had to kidnap this guy with no connections because he's disposable. And then they come to the realization that they're all disposable too. And then some stuff, but I just liked that the story's just very well told, and I really enjoyed that them coming to the realization that they were picked to do this job because they're disposable, and they're like, oh, what's going on here? So that was a nice little plot point. But once again, the art by what's his name, Luca Casalanguida, is really nice. I just like the style, and the storytelling is excellent. Whoops, he's got sort of this thin line.
Looks a little like Doc Shaner, a little bit.
Yeah.
It looks like a good fit for a run on the Punisher.
This sort of indie comics, modern indie comics style. That's a little European, a little Japanese. It's got a little of everything in it. And some good drawing, but really enjoyed it. I must say, I liked that. I liked the first issue enough to put it on my pull list, but I liked that second issue even better.
Oh, that's good.
Always good stuff. Can't say this cover intrigues me much, though.
It looks like a paperback detective novel cover.
Yeah, it's relatively okay. But Odin's Eye is much more eye-catching.
You made it funny.
I always prefer Cowabunga.
Cowabunga, dude. Oof, don't smash my comics. Into the light. Funny, one of the highlights of my comic collecting week is on Saturday getting the email that's telling me what's in my pull list this week.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh, cool. Let's see what's in the pull list this week. And last week, when it was just one comic, sometimes it scares me when I'm like, holy cow, there's 9 comics in my pull list. How did that happen?
Yeah.
But that's pretty rare. But also equally as rare was last week when there was 1 comic on my pull list. I was like, whoa, just 1? That doesn't seem right. And that's when I said to myself, I'll pick up some comic bags this week.
need your fix.
And I was even thinking of picking, though I ended up not, because I picked up a couple of, the Bad Idea stuff came out, but it wasn't on my pull list. I was even thinking about picking up that new Wonder Woman album-sized one that everybody says the art in is so amazing. Jared, have you tried any of the Comics original digital comics? Scottson does Night of the Ghouls.
Yeah.
I love Frank Avia's work too. No, I have not tried that.
Yeah, I really like Francisco Francovilla's work.
Yeah, I have not. I occasionally get like I just got some collected editions on Amazon of Marvel's Epic comics when they all went on sale for $4 a piece.
Yeah, I remember about that last week.
Yeah, during the Thanksgiving week. But I rarely go to Comixology. It's like I read those comics on the Kindle, so.
I wonder if Francesca is going to do more Black Beetle material.
That was fun stuff.
Yeah.
But that was another one that annoyed me because I think I bought the issues on it. And then right away, they came out with this beautiful hardcover of it. And I was like, ah.
Right. To answer Fanner's question, I got one or two of them, but I didn't get them all, and I kind of wish I had. Matter of fact, that when I get more money, that'll probably be one of the things I want to hunt down. Anything that Francesco does, I like. He has, and I don't know if it'll ever come to pass, but he's got a project that he's talked about when I've met him conventions. It's called USRA, which is giant robots in World War II. And I'm like, I've seen the concept art for it, for lack of better words. Like, if this ever comes out, I'm all over it.
I remember looking at some of that Francavilla Spirit, but I generally find Spirit comics without Will Eisner kind of pointless.
I see what you're saying. It depends on who does them, but
I love
it.
I love with the craft Will Eisner puts into them. Right. But there's really not much to be done with the Spirit that Will Eisner didn't do.
It would be interesting to see Steranko do a version of the Spirit.
The best Spirit, the best non-Will Eisner Spirit I read was the Alan Moore written one. Who was it? Was it Gibbons who drew it?
I believe so.
That was the only good non-Eisner. I mean, they're usually well drawn. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're terrible. They're just kind of pointless to me. I just don't. There's nothing inherent about the Spirit that's interesting. Besides the stories Will Eisner tells with them.
Yeah, it depends.
But yeah, that Alan Moore, I think it was Dave. I'm going to look that one up again. That was just terrific. My favorite issue from him is Snyder and his Detective Comics issue, Skeleton Key, which is about James Gordon Jr. I love that. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
I haven't either.
Actually, I may have. Did he? I have. Was that the Dick Grayson issues?
I have not a clue. I haven't read a Batman book in years, except for the animated stuff.
The last Batman I bought was some trades from the Grant Morrison run. Think about something contemporary by Scott Snyder.
I'd like to see Francisco do a version. He's done poster style art of Batman in different time frames, like a 70s version. I'd like to see his version of a 30s Batman.
This does have the Francavilla stuff in it. I forgot about that.
Okay.
I bought this. Someone said this was really good. You should check it out. I remember getting this version. And I this may have been the first place I saw Francesco Francavilla. Yeah, it is. I don't think when did this come out? 5 years ago? That's what I think.
Well, 5 equals 12, so it should
2011, 10 years ago. So I bought this. But yeah, someone told me if you like sort of the 70s detective Batman, get this. It's true because this is, I think Batman was supposed to be dead at this time.
I would like to see more stories set like a 70s detective Batman.
So Dick Grayson is Batman in this book, and he's sane Batman. You know, they've made Batman so crazy over the years that a sane Batman really stands out. Oh, skeleton cases. There we go. This is the stuff he's talking about.
Okay.
Oh, they got some sketches for that famous jock cover that demands big money. It's amazing how covers can. You know what? That it just struck me. Maybe that's a. I was just saying, it's amazing that like a good Batman cover that everybody likes, that jock cover, can drive the price of the issue up. That could be because of the low circulation of comics these days. Because if only, I don't know, how many people would have bought that Batman cover initially? 70,000? If there's only 70,000 in the print run, let's say, and all of a sudden it awakens a lot of Batman fans who want to have, because there's more than 70,000 Batman fans out there.
Yeah,
There are, but most wouldn't buy a comic book.
that's what.
No, I'm talking ones who have bought comic books. I'm just talking maybe lapsed Batman fans. Maybe they're Batman fans, but they don't really buy comic books anymore. But when they see a cool cover they really like, maybe they get back into it a little, and it's definitely extra people driving the price of the cover up.
Maybe.
And that could be a because of the lower print runs. Because I have to imagine there's not a ton of extra copies of even Batman out there. Like how many extra copies do you think a comic shop gets of Batman each month?
Was it November? There were supposed to be like literally 52 different Batman books coming out that month.
What was that?
There was some month that was coming up. I think it was November. It was supposed to be November. There were literally like 52 different Batman books that were going to be released in one month.
I don't know about that. I haven't heard. 52 is how many books they used to publish a month. So, yeah, my favorite Batman style too. 9.8 jock cover sold for $500. Wow, that's a bit. Yeah, but I imagine. Let's just say a comic shop sells 100 issues of Batman. How many do you think they'd order extra for their back issue bins, or would they just be happy selling that 100?
I think it depends on how big the shop is and where it's located.
A shop that can sell 100 issues, that's a pretty big shop.
That's going to be in a major city.
Right. But will they buy 10 extra issues of a random Batman?
Depends on how much they can get for the limited edition variant.
No. There's that too.
It's really going to depend on the buyer's anticipation of what it's going to potentially be.
But in those days, there was no limited edition variant. It was just a normal Batman cover coming through.
It's really hard to tell.
Yeah. But I have to imagine they're not ordering more than 10% extra.
Somebody like maybe Midtown or Chuck Rosansky or something may buy several, extra copies just on a whim, just in case it becomes hot. But
yeah, but I'm thinking I'm thinking it's 10% at most for the big stores, and that means if an issue all of a sudden becomes hot, and by hot I mean maybe instead of 100% sell through, it's 150% of people. You got an extra 50 people, even an extra 20 people in the store.
Right.
Who want it when you only got 10 copies. They sell through fast. So maybe that jock cover is so hot just because people who don't buy Batman regularly want it.
Don't know.
I mean, yeah, just speculating. Just trying to think it through.
Don't know.
These are the mysteries of comic collecting. Why does one issue? Because that's happened with it. Usually there's an issue gets hot because of a first appearance. An issue gets hot because they specifically made it a collectible. The 1 in 25s, the 1 in 100s. Rarely does an issue get hot because of the regular cover. But that jock cover got hot and stayed hot.
It's the first I'd heard of it. So.
Oh, you haven't heard of that
I'm
one?
not.
It's the one where the Joker's face is made up of bats.
I'm just so sick of the Joker. I mean,
oh, me too. I can't stand the Joker. Yeah, it's this cover right here, where the Joker's face is made, and I think his eyes are red in the finished version.
Okay.
But it's that cover. It's just the Joker's face, and that's the one that just sold for $500 and a 9.8 from 2011.
Oh, so I didn't realize it was that old too. Okay.
Well, yeah, it is a decade old now. You know what thought just got into my head today too? I don't know why I think of these things. Once again, I was thinking about slabs, and hold on a second. Let me see what his thought is. The Rocket Raccoon cover in Incredible Hulk is still selling me $100. Wow, I bought it for $5 before the movie. Yeah, that's. But we understand that one. It's because of the movie.
And before
that
the movie,
at least makes sense to me.
That was a dollar bin book before the movie.
But once again, this is along the lines of Paolo's. I gotta get the Marvel's generic comic slab. What's the comic that no one would slab? And the thought came to my head that any modern comic,
I got it.
Everybody's looking for a 9.8. If you slab a modern comic, you want it to be a 9.8.
Right.
9.6s are disappointing because why shouldn't be? It's a brand new comic.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, how would you age a comic? Let's just say you wanted to slab a comic from this week, except you wanted it to get a 1.0. How would you age it? I mean, you could just rip it, but that's not what I mean. I mean, how would you age a week-old comic to make it look like it was 40 years old?
Within what time frame do you have to work?
A month.
Oh, that's not going to work. I'd say just leave it in ultraviolet light long enough and it's going to fade.
But we don't want it to just look faded. We want it to look old, kind of. There's 9 or 10 tells that probably make something old. The discoloration, maybe a crease or two, maybe a little tearing at the edge.
Spine wear, whatever.
I don't know why that struck me. How would you possibly age a brand new comic? Bake it in the oven? That'd be
what I was thinking.
That'd be the first thing I'd try is baking it in the oven. I have no idea what it would do.
What I was thinking is to bake it in an oven a little bit.
Subscription crease. See that's too specific to, like I said, I want to, you could easily just rip it, fold it, but you crumple it. But I would want it to be like kind of crumpled in the right way.
I mean, that's
not look like soak it in some Earl Grey tea.
Paper is to soak it in tea and darken it.
The problem is that would make it look water damaged, not old.
That'd make it look like a new book where it was the self-stock.
Yeah, and make it look like an oversaturated new book.
Yeah.
I don't know why this popped into my head. Wouldn't it be funny to have a 1.0 brand new comic?
A 1.0 is you're going to have a lot more trouble making it look old.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I thought. I'm like, it would be hard to get a 1.0 brand new comic unless you just rip it.
Yep.
And I don't know why that thought jumped into my head today, but it did. I'm like, you know what? A 1.0 brand new comic would be a lot harder to get than a 9.8 brand new comic.
I just thought of a candidate might even be better than Marvel's generic book, and that's Street Poet Ray.
The Blackthorn one or the Marvel one?
Both.
That also reminded me of when I was thinking about that. I showed this book last year. The Asylum of Horrors that my shop gave me for free. And have you seen the lately ETA Nick has been putting together some ETA Nick has made some videos on production flaws in comics.
Mm-hmm.
I've never watched any of his videos. I thought, does he cover other topics other than just speculation?
Oh, he doesn't really cover speculation.
Okay, that's
He covers CGC books and dealing in books more than speculation. Maybe flipping books.
okay. Gotcha.
And he also makes videos about grading books.
I mean, I know of his channel. I just don't think I've ever watched any of his videos.
It's a good channel. I check it
I
out all
thought
the time.
he was looking at it from like a speculation point of view. Okay.
And it's not. He's an actual. I think he's like a forensic accountant.
What an odd term. Interesting.
Yeah, when people need their books looked at, he goes in. He had a company that did it. Started a company. That was his job for years. I think he still has the company.
Yeah, but he's retired.
So yeah, he's retired. But he's more a blue chip comic collector, not a speculator.
Gotcha.
And he doesn't do anything with the new comics. But and he likes to find like undervalued books on eBay and flip them. So that's what a lot of his stuff is about.
Okay.
And he lives right near CGC, so he gets things. Though he doesn't collect slabs anymore, he sometimes slabs things to sell them. What was I about to say about him? which oh crap, which video was it? My point just flew right out of my head. I have to look at his videos to get it again now.
You dropped your laser pointer. And
pardon me, it was this production flaws. And he was showing there's known production flaws in certain issues. Like I think it was New Mutants 98 has a line going through it. And and how production flaws don't affect the grading. And he was showing how is it possible to get a 9.6 with this production flaw? And he finds graded copies that were, scans of them, not his copies. It's like, yes, it is possible to get a 9.6 with this production flaw. Right. Here's a 9.8 with this production flaw. I like Nick. He's quite a character. He is. But that brought this to mind. I was like, this big crease in here. Let's see. Right there.
Oh, yeah.
Is a production flaw. And it's just like this big scar all the way across the book. It's like a river on a map.
Yeah.
Big scar all the way across the book. And I'm like, they got to take off for that production flaw. If someone would even bother to send this in to be graded, you cannot grade this production flaw the same as
if it's a known issue. That's a terrible word to use for comics. If it's a known problem with that production run, do they take that into account?
Yes.
Like if every single known copy of this book has that flaw.
That's when they don't count the production flaw. Okay. I guess if it happens to a lot of the run, they don't hold it against you. But I guess if it happens to one singular issue or a handful of them, I have to assume they'd hold that against the grade on this book. Why would they not? It makes no sense that they wouldn't, even though that's a production error. That's the paper itself being messed up. It was messed up before it went through the printer. It was messed up after it went through the printer.
Don't suggest that, because that'll be the next fad, is they do that on purpose.
They put bullet holes through comics. They'll do that. And the last comic I got for the week was a shelf pull, which is Newburn #2. This is the second Jacob Phillips comic I got that I bought the first issue, wasn't really blown away by it, but then bought the second issue off the shelf. And that Texas Blood never made it on my pull list, and I'm unsure if Newburn has got. I kind of like it, but it kind of also doesn't really grab me. It's okay. And do I have room for another okay comic on my pull list? I'm not sure. So I'm still torn whether I want to read more of this or not. It's the story of a guy who's an ex-cop who now is hired by all the mob families in New York City to kind of keep the peace. If they need something investigated that'll keep the peace, he's the one who does it. And he just picked up a new assistant too. This woman who he wants to be his assistant, and she's unsure if she wants to do this work or not.
Yeah.
She's kind of been on the wrong side of the law a little bit, but not that much on the wrong side of the law. And he's got cop friends who help him out too and look the other way. But and also call him in because they know he's going to keep the peace. So it's kind of okay. Like I said, it's solid. But I just don't know if I have room for another solid book or if I want to continue looking for an excellent book.
Right.
Because everybody got to feel like Crossover is solid. What else? There's a couple others that are solid. I've said it over of course not. Crossover is just the front. And Crossover is already on my pull list, so I don't know if I need another solid book. Mm-hmm. Let's do one more.
Wake up, Paolo.
Read. Let's see. What do we got here? Whoops, I forgot. Let's go to 1974 DC Super Horror.
Okay.
It's not quite superheroes. It's
Oh,
not
that's
quite.
Too much green.
Too much green. They'd have to see enough flawed copies
Not
before.
purple,
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what is that? Michael Fleischer and Jim.
Okay. I'm gonna slab Swamp Thing.
That's the Nestor Redondo Swamp Thing.
Yeah. I hate what I'm about to say. I'm going to have to rip Jonah Hex, and I'm going to read Weird Adventure.
Is that a Mike Kaluta?
I don't want to rip Jonah Hex.
Nope. That's why these Weird Western Tales. Slab Spectre, read Swamp Thing, rip Hex.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Slab Adventure, read Hex, rip something.
I think I'm with Paolo.
I'd be okay with reading all three of those, actually.
Well, of course, duh. That's not the game, is it?
I'm just saying, it's a better quality caliber of contestants in this one.
Yeah, well, that's because we know all these ones.
True.
Though I don't really know that issue of Jonah Hex. So I want to read it. I think I might have that Adventure Comics.
Anything that's got a sea monster on the front of it, I'm all for that.
Have you ever read the Fleischer and Aparo Spectre stuff?
Some of it.
I have got a few issues when I was a kid. They were back issues to me then. And I was just blown away by them. I was like, wow, this is not a DC comic.
That's it's not a stereotypical DC comic at all.
Because there was death in it and violence.
Yeah.
But I want to read that Jonah Hex because I think that's one of the few I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind reading that either. I'm just in this case, I'm slightly more interested in the other two.
Wow, that's a nice cover on Jonah Hex too.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I like that Ghost Rider.
Yeah, this one's hard. I mean, I could read all three of those.
Well, that's because all three of them are up in your wheelhouse. Sometimes they're the hard. Sometimes it's easier to decide when you don't really know what's in them.
That's true.
Like the 1963 ones from ACG Comics. I wonder who did that issue. Who was doing Jonah Hex then? I remember the Mark Teixeira Jonah Hex from later on.
So it's Weird Western Tales number 25. Yep,
Weird Western Tales number 25. Because, like I said, I know who did. I know Resta Redondo drew Swamp Thing 13.
Let's see. The story was Michael Fleischer.
Oh, okay. 2 Michael Fleischer books. Interesting.
The art credit is by an artist named Luis Dominguez,
Oh, okay. I remember him.
who I'm not familiar with.
He did a bunch of stuff for DC in the 70s. He may have been Spanish. From Spain, Spanish.
The interior art was done by Noli Panaligan.
Who?
Noli, N-O-L-Y. Panaligan, P-A-N-A-L-I-G-A-N.
That sounds like some sort of weird pen name.
Could be. Possible.
I don't know that one at all.
No, me neither. And the editor was Joe Orlando.
The editor's who?
Joe Orlando.
Okay. Yeah, I think Mike Fleischer wrote most of the Jonah Hex stuff I read in the 70s.
This issue was reprinted in Showcase Presents Jonah Hex #1 in 2005.
So Mike Grell art in that Adventure Comics 436. Is it in the back? Because I thought Aparo was drawing the Spectre stuff. Slab Spectre, Reed Swamp Thing, Rip Hex. Born for adventure. You know, it's funny. I actually tried selling this multiple times on eBay over the years, and no one ever wanted it. That's why I still have it. Wow, I'm gonna have to reread this. This Francesco Francavilla stuff is pretty nice.
I'm of the opinion that Francesco rarely does a book that's not pretty good.
He's definitely got a David Mazzucchelli-ish Batman style.
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah, I think I like the Francavilla stuff better than the Jock stuff.
Paolo's landing.
Paolo is landing the plane. It's late where Paolo is.
Yes, it is.
And then he'll say after we get off here, he'll be like, I got to go do one more YouTube video. Yeah. No, he'll show up.
I'm definitely going to bed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, next week is Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So I might not be around for a show. So I'll probably be back home.
I have a day off on Thursday. If somebody's not working Thursday, I might do something. I might do something in the afternoon.
Okay. That could be a plan.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be doing anything Thursday. How about you, Scott? Doing anything Thursday?
I get off work at 3:30 Thursday. So.
Okay. Maybe we can do something early on Thursday.
Yeah, and we'll see if Tim's around. Maybe he doesn't have any crazy people.
Yeah. Let's see. It'd be cool to get Tim back on. I haven't seen him in ages.
Although if we do it on my channel, I'm going to see anybody who shows up is invited to come.
All right.
Stay for a while.
Paolo will have a show all day and all night.
Are you going to have tacos for everybody, Paolo?
Tacos for everyone. Here's one.
No tacos. Codfish.
You know, maybe I don't live in LA, but I never got the whole passion for tacos.
What's not to like? I mean,
they're okay. Nothing wrong with a taco, but people are passionate about them. I
love tacos.
I prefer enchiladas. I'm not gonna go if I'm gonna eat Mexican food. I'm not gonna go one of those, light stuff to nibble on. No, let's go for the full package. Give me an enchilada, full of beans.
You're already full of beans.
See you Thursday. Wednesday's our last day in the office for 2 weeks. Oh, cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well,
See, we already got a guest.
Yeah, I finished up my semester yesterday, and I don't know if we're getting any. I don't think we're getting any more Bad Idea comics out for the rest of the year, for the rest of the month. I'm not sure, but I don't know. I don't think there's any plans to. So I might have lots of free time too. I'll be making some more art. Yeah, the California taco is different than anywhere in the U.S. Oh, okay. Well, I've also heard that, like the L.A. taco is far superior to any New York City Mexican food, which makes sense.
I don't know.
New York City has
I would be willing to do in-depth research on that topic to find out.
New York City has great food from everywhere.
New York
no
City,
way they're going to have better Mexican
like one of the,
food than LA.
I mean, one of the best food cities on the planet. Just there's so much a mix of everything there.
Mm-hmm.
That's like anything else. Probably the best Mexican food in the world is usually not stereotypical restaurant food. It's somebody's grandmother.
Yeah.
What they make. But hey, I'm not gonna. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not going to prejudge a taco.
I just remember like New York City has such weird like food neighborhoods, and I can remember one. This is in the 90s. My friends were like, "Oh, let's go out to the Curry Ghetto tonight." It's like, what? That was the name of the neighborhood, the Curry Ghetto, because there was a dozen Indian restaurants right near each other. And that's how things go in New York. It's like you have these like neighborhoods that are this one type of food. It's really strange.
I once found the website for a Portuguese restaurant in New York, and I was looking at it. Why are you charging these prices for Portuguese food?
Because it's in New York. The rent alone makes you charge those prices.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it goes.
Let me see if it's still there. Portuguese restaurant, New York.
Oh, there's thousands of restaurants in New York.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how you have to know the locals to like. I can remember one time we went. This is back when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And we went out to the what was it? The Brooklyn Museum for a field trip one day in college. We took a little, shuttle bus down to the Brooklyn Museum, and then our teacher was like, "Oh, it's like you ever have good Cuban food?" And we're all, 20-year-olds who've never had good Cuban food. Like, no, they're I gotta take you to this place. So then after the trip, he took us to this. Somewhere in Manhattan, and it wasn't even like a fancy restaurant. It was like a diner,
right?
But it was a Cuban diner that served Cuban food, and he knew it, and he knew it was good. So it was like we had good Cuban food.
Yeah, that's like if you want to go on a food tour of a city, find the locals and find out where they go.
Yeah.
Okay, so I found the first one that pops up in Google is called Taberna 97, and it's near Tompkins Square Park. So let's see what
great taco spot.
Let's see what kind of food these guys are serving, and how overpriced is it?
While he's doing that, tacos are kind of like pizza in one regard. Is even a mediocre taco is good.
I can remember the single saltiest thing I ever had was at a Taco Bell. My friend Bunch, who I've mentioned before, he used to come up to my house every summer for my barbecue, and he'd like to he'd like to stop at the local Taco Bell because he loves tacos. And he's like, "You've got one of the only good Taco Bells in the world around here." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I wouldn't know." So he always liked to stop at that Taco Bell because their tacos were actually good. And usually I didn't get anything because I don't eat much at Taco Bell. This one day I was like, decided to get something. So I think I wanted a burrito. So I got one of their $1 burritos or whatever it was.
It's overpriced.
It was like eating a salt lick. It was the single saltiest thing ever. Bunch was like, "Oh, you got that was the cheese on it." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Don't ever get the cheese on it." I was like, "Oh, okay."
There are some of the combo meals they have at Taco Bell now actually have sodium warnings in the app. Like if you order through the app, it tells you you're exceeding the recommended daily allowance of sodium.
Wow.
Okay, so found the menu for that Portuguese restaurant in Tompkins, near Tompkins Park, and yeah, it's overpriced. It's charging $22 for food that we pay €7.50 for.
Yeah,
it's Manhattan near Tompkins Square Park. That's what's going to happen. There's no way around it.
And then it's showing me stuff that is not Portuguese at all. What do you mean vegan chili?
The Portuguese vegan chili, you know. You eat that every Sunday.
Of course. What the? Oh, God, this is ridiculous. No, if somebody took me there, oh, let's go to a Portuguese restaurant, and they bring me to that place, and I start looking at it. Yeah, where the hell's the Portuguese food?
Portuguese vegan chili.
And why would you want to eat, like, if you grew up in Portugal, why would you want to eat Portuguese food somewhere else?
Yeah,
because it's not going to be as good as what you get.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God,
they have. If you're on vacation, maybe if you were living there, I could see. Oh, I want to taste a home.
Right, that's
a
different story.
People from Portugal don't go to New York City to eat Portuguese food.
Living in a college town.
No, those you go to Newark. That's where the Portuguese people are.
Aha, Portuguese vegan chili. There we
go. You don't want to go to Newark, trust me.
Martin Comics knows the recipe.
I would be mean too if I'd eat vegan chili. I was like,
look, you cannot be Portuguese and vegan.
Yeah.
Vegan chili is just fine. It's just
no, you cannot be Portuguese and vegan. If you are vegan, you are a traitor to the nation. You will go to jail.
I've made chili without meat before. It's just fine.
Have you tried it with the Impossible?
No, I've never tried any of that.
They make a substitute for ground beef.
Right.
It's actually pretty decent.
I've heard that.
It tastes a lot like hamburger.
But it's expensive too.
It is. That's true.
Down by one of the universities, there are a boatload of Chinese restaurants. Great spots. Wherever we go in, we're the only white faces in the place. Always a good sign. Oh, one time, I've got this one friend. I went to purchase with her, and she worked at Marvel briefly for maybe a year or two. Her name is Feng Ming Ma, and she's second generation Chinese, I think. Her parents are right off the boat Chinese. So she speaks Mandarin, I think it is. And one day we were going down to Pearl Paint, which is on Canal Street, or used to be in Canal. It's closed, I think. Canal Street in New York City, which is in Chinatown. So I'm down there with Feng Ming, and she's like, "Oh, let's get something to eat." She starts taking me, and she also had to do like Christmas shopping, or some kind of shopping for her mother too, to get some. We started going into all these little alleys and side streets in Chinatown that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And she starts buying like food off of the street carts for me to try, and she's like speaking to the street cart vendor in Mandarin. And I'm just like, holy cow. All this stuff. And I'd been down to Pearl Paint a million times,
That's the
but I'd never
advantage
been
of
in the
knowing
back
somebody.
alleys and buying
Yeah.
food from the street vendors. I wouldn't even know what to ask for. So it's
Right.
like, that was quite the experience.
I live in a college town. We have a lot of different places here. The one thing that I would like to have here that we don't have is a Korean barbecued fried chicken place.
Ah, okay.
We have a couple Korean restaurants, but none that specialize in that. There's a really good Brazilian restaurant here, but boy, it's expensive.
I never knew there were so many little alleys and nooks and crannies and little stores in Chinatown like that. Because it was like, Canal Street is the really big street. And these weren't even cross streets. They were just like,
I would
little
like to have, if I had a time machine, I would like to go back to New York, probably late 70s, maybe even early 80s, and visit like all the different specialty science fiction bookshops they used to have. And also there's a certain section, I can't remember what they call it, is they had like tons and tons of guitar stores on one street.
Guitars. Well, we should sign off and let Paolo get to sleep.
You only have one day off this weekend, but then I have a bunch of days off during Christmas.
Get some rest. All right. So you guys all have a good night out there. And maybe we'll catch you sometime next week. We'll have to see about all our schedules. Like I said, I know I'm going to be at my sister's Christmas Eve, but I don't know what time I'll be back. Sometime before 9. But who knows? But anyway, we'll catch you guys sometime next week. And everybody, have a good week out there.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.